Hello and welcome to the GT World Challenge Asia Series, powered by Tarmac Works. My name is Paul Jeffrey, and today we've got a very exciting programme ahead for you. This is the very first race of a brand new series in the Asia region. First, we've done Europe, then we did the Americas, and now we're bringing a brand new esports series to the Asia region for real and pro sim racing and real world drivers to take part. Our first round is from the legendary venue of Monza, and it's a first race in a 5-race championship. Taking us through the entirety of the season, I am delighted to say, will be the wonderful Ben Constanduros and David Addison, the voice of the Real World GT World Challenge Series. And David, welcome very much to this opening round. And Monza, a wonderful track, should produce some great racing.
Monza is a legendary circuit, as you rightly say, and it has got great bits to it that always engender good racing. You've got fast bits, you've got elements of the circuit that favour the brave, and you've got that first chicane that is always a pinch point. You know, you've got a long, fast drag down to a sharp, tight right and a sharp, tight left, and if you get through that safely, then you can make something out of the race. But do you attack into the first corner, or do you look after yourself? A bit of self-preservation might not go amiss. And that's just the first couple of corners of 1 hour of racing. And what makes this even better as well is that we're going to have a mandatory pit stop. There's no window, but everybody must make a pit stop. So we're heading into real GT world here with not only the circuits, the cars, the drivers, but the strategy thrown in as well. I can't wait.
Yeah, fantastic, David. I think you hit the nail on the head. A very challenging circuit. And it'll be great to see how our esport and how our real-world drivers take place as well. And Ben Constanduros, we've spoken together before, as well as David, in various SRO esport championships. We've done the Americas and the European series. With this being Asia, Ben, how do you think our drivers will fare on a world stage? It's very exciting to see this happen, isn't it?
Well, we were part together in the Charity Cup, which was a fantastic, entertaining couple of hours. We saw our Asians really up to speed with what they needed to do on Aceto Corsa Competizione. Of course, learning that also comes with the real drivers getting to grips with sim. But ultimately, I think both of us were very impressed. The only challenge is, of course, they don't know these European circuits that some of our races will be taking part on over the next couple of months. And that presents an extra challenge, but also a bit of fun too.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you very much, gents. And for everybody at home, just to give you a bit of a flavour of what we've got coming in this race and the next 4 events. We've got a 5-race championship. So we're starting at Monza. There are a race for the Pro-Am eSport drivers. What that means is we've got 24 invited professional Asia region eSport drivers and 24 drivers who have qualified over a hot lap competition. That will be a fabulous showcase for the eSport drivers. But we've also got the Pro-Am of the real world. So yes, the GT World Challenge Asia drivers that race in real life in the Pro and Am categories will be taking place in a race of their own as well. Both categories will fight for points. Both categories will run through the duration of the 5-round series, and there will be a champion crowned at the end as well. So there's something to fight for in both series, and I am fascinated, as I'm sure David and Ben are as well, and you folks at home. I'm fascinated to see how the drivers adapt and get on in this wonderful category, because esport racing hasn't really manifested itself fully in the Asia region, so we're incredibly excited to have that opportunity to bring this level of organised professional competition into the region and give a shop window for these drivers to participate in what we anticipate to be a very challenging, a very competitive, and hopefully for everybody at home and us in the box, a very exciting championship indeed. Now, what we're going to do, we're heading into the first race at Monza very shortly for the Pro-Am eSport drivers, but we're going to have a quick word with the director of Tarmac Works, who are one of our very proud sponsors of this championship. So we're going to hear a few words now before we take a look at the grid.
Hi everybody, this is Felix from Tarmac Works. We are a motorcar company based up in Hong Kong. Really excited to be able to join GT World Challenge Asia as the presenting partner. We have always been a huge supporter of esports, and this is probably the biggest series and championship out in Asia. So we're really excited about that. It makes a lot of sense for us to join this championship because we do make a lot of GT3 cars. And with this series, we're able to create a lot of really exciting liveries, as well as use some of the liveries in the game to make them into replica motor cars. So again, we're really excited, and I hope you're enjoying round one, and good luck to all the drivers.
Fantastic to hear there from Felix Kwong of Tarmac Works. Thank you very much for those kind words. And now we're going to go and have a look at the drivers that will be taking part in this first race. We've got a massive field of talent in this championship. So let's have a look at who will be on the grid for the opening round at Monza and see if we recognise a few of those names. So as you can see, we have got drivers from all regions of the Asia region: South Korea, Japan, Malaysia, Australia, Indonesia. It's an incredible lineup of talent, both professional and, as we say, qualified amateur racers taking part in the event. The technical challenge of bringing this series, the fidelity on the racetrack, the broadcast software, is one that is not to be underestimated, and I am massively excited to be part of the process that brings this racing around the world. The drivers have already been out on circuit, they've already put plenty of laps in to the Monza Grand Prix track, and as David mentioned at the very top of the show, this is an incredibly challenging circuit. There's not many corners, but the opportunity to win or lose time is always around the corner. And David, you've done plenty of real world.
Yeah, Monza is a circuit.
And this is a really exciting piece of track. But David, you've done plenty of real world coverage in the Monza Italian Grand Prix circuit. What do GT3 drivers have to contend with on a track like this?
The first thing they're going to have to do is worry about top speed and good aero, and in many ways the two are going to be combined, aren't they? But you've got to have a car that cuts through the air. It's not just about horsepower, but traditionally we've seen, and it could be, at the risk of being cynical, that it's an Italian car, Ferraris go really well at Monza, but it's a nice slippery shape. Now, looking at the entry list for the first race, the sim entry list, we have got some Ferraris out there. You've got Lamborghinis as well. McLarens we saw go really well round here in the very first Charity Cup race that we had for the European GT World Challenge way back in March when lockdown started. A grunt and go car like a Mercedes, yes, should be up there, but something really boxy like a Bentley or a Nissan, I think, are going to struggle because they're really the wrong shape. So it's a long-winded answer to the question, Paul. What do they have to worry about? But aero is something that you need to factor in, and certainly plenty of top speed, a nice slippery shape. On top of that, you've got to worry about the first corner, getting through that chicane safely. And you've also got to make sure that when you've made that pit stop, you don't get yourself caught up in traffic and lose time to the opposition.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And just to give everybody a little bit of insight as well into this race, we are using Aceto Corsa Competizione, which is an outstanding racing simulation from an Italian development team called Kunos. The simulation has the official GT World Challenge cars within it, so we have got a wide variety of different vehicles that people can enter this competition in. You will be seeing GT3 specification racing, but you'll be seeing cars from many different marques, and as David rightly said, this brings with it different characteristics of the car. They'll be strong on certain tracks, less so on others, and we've got 5 different circuits that we're visiting. We're starting at the powerhouse that is Monza, where straight line speed, absolutely, and corner exit is key to a fast lap time. But as the season progresses, cars that aren't necessarily at the front of the field today, and as the driver skill and experience progresses, may come to the fore later on. So it's one of those championships where you really need to be in it from the beginning to the very end, scoring strong, scoring big results in order to get those points that you need to take the grand final championship prize at the end of the year. And that's why I'm really excited about this championship. The drivers have an opportunity. We've got some very experienced esport racers within this category. We've got some people that are amateurs that are coming in quite inexperienced, quite new to the world of broadcast, high value, high professionalism championships such as this. And the more they drive, the more skill and experience they acquire, and the better the racing should be. As David and Ben mentioned at the top of the show, we did a month or so ago a one-off charity cup event where we had some invited drivers took part in the sim on circuit, and the racing was intriguing. There was some fights throughout the field, but now it's what matters. Now it is championship time, and now the serious business kicks off. So now we're going to head trackside to the Monza Grand Prix track for our very first race, as I hand over to the commentary team of Ben Constanduris and David Addison.
Paul, thanks very much. We are good to go racing then. We're just a couple of minutes away from the first of the two races here at Monza getting underway. Local time, just gone 4 o'clock at Monza. It's not the sunniest of days. Of course, the weather can be factored into the game, into the simulation as well. But one thing that can't be simulated is pace, and it is Joseph de Jesus who is on pole position. And of course, Ben, he was the man to beat in that Charity Cup race. So he's carrying on the good pace already evinced into this first championship round, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And you were talking a little bit about the different marks of car. Just look how many Mercedes are at the front of that field. Very much a car that is preferred by the guys in Aceto Corsa Competizione.
So you have the Mercedes, as you say, on the front of the grid. BMW, the best of the BMWs, fourth, which is number 23. That's the car of Andrew O'Hara. You'll see many in the pseudo Leighton House Miami blue colours, but Laundry House being the entrant for the team, which is a nice play on it. And those cars have been going really nicely across the earlier sessions. So there you've got the top 23 on the grid. We're going to get underway in about 1 minute's time. Rolling start, of course, for a proper GT race. And then the cars will accelerate their way down towards the first very tight little chicane of the Prima Variante, the right, the left, that takes you on to the Curva Grande, and then up towards the second chicane, again, where you can rattle over the curb. Sometimes you gain, sometimes you lose out of all of that. But first things first, you've got to get through that tight first chicane, as we've been saying already. Pole position then to Joseph de Jesus, the fourth, with the Tarmac Motorsports Mercedes, the Australian driver who runs in the pro class within this sim entry. And lining up with him at the front of the grid is number 6 of Kin Long Li, the Hong Kong driver in the Waco's flip table racing Mercedes. One thing's sure, Ben, you have very charismatic team names in esports racing, don't you?
Hi, David. Sorry, I'm having a few gremlins at my end. Hopefully you're hearing me now.
Loud and clear.
Mega.
Yes.
Good. Well, the clock goes down to 0, and we've got one nice, calm, quiet lap of Monza before we get into our proper racing. I think you were talking a little bit about the Mercedes. Remember, the Mercedes took victory in the Charity Cup in the hands of Niels Naujoks. Obviously,
yes,
one of the best drivers out there anyway. But it's interesting to see actually how many boxy cars are at the head of the field, and the McLarens and Ferraris are a bit further back in this particular race.
That's right. So the cars now weave their way down towards the Prima Variante through the chicane. 23 you're looking at there is Andrew O'Hara with the Laundry House, BMW M6. The BMWs weren't the most popular of cars from the GT World Challenge Europe Esports Championship, were they? But we do have one of them looking pretty competitive around here. There's also Chak Ming Wong in the entry list, the privateer, and they're in 224 Mercedes. Really the man to beat. Joseph de Jesus, I think, really is going to be pretty tough to stop, given what we've seen from him already over the course of that Charity Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, he qualified into the Charity Cup. He wasn't invited, and he's now been moved into that kind of pro lineup because of that pace, and still has the pace to be on the pole position. The big unknown, the big question mark is what you do with fuel mixtures and tyre consumption. In theory, a Pirelli tyre can easily do an hour race without needing to be changed, and the tanks usually can do an hour race without needing to be refilled. But if you really, really hammer those tyres, you are going to take the best life out of them quite early on in the race. So do you look to change your tyres?
Can you show us the rest of the
do
grid,
you
23rd
simply
and below, please, Nicky? Can you show us
just
the rest of the grid on the graphic,
go into the
please?
pits to conform to the regulations, and that's it, rather than actually do anything when you take the pit stop? We did see that kind of strategy really play out, not necessarily in the sim race, they all had it nailed, but in the pro race, the real race we'll have coming up later, a lot of the real drivers still trying to get their head around what they needed to do, and therefore mistakes made and strategic calls not necessarily maximised.
So the field now pouring its way down towards the Variante Ascari, and you can see urgency. The drivers now trying to get some warmth into the tyres. They may only be, of course, be simulated tyres, Ben, but so much of this is so true to life, isn't it, that it's like any other green flag lap that you would anticipate seeing.
I think it's one of the best simulations in the world in terms of the way the tyres have been built in the game and how they feel. So much data from Pirelli was passed over to Kunos to create the model and make sure that the tyres behave exactly how they should do in real life. And that's why we're able to host these races with real-world drivers. This is really not that far away from what they would experience in the real world of racing, and unfortunately the GT Challenge World Asia is not being able to experience this yet.
So let's put you on the spot very quickly as our sim expert. Who's going to come out on top? Who's going to win this first race then?
I think Jesus Cecilia has Jesus Cecilia, that's a different person. Jesus has definitely got a very good setup. He's got the right car, and as long as he makes a good start, I think we should see De Jesus take the victory. Although there's a couple of other Australians a bit further down the order that perhaps didn't qualify so well, but should be up there come the end of the race.
Okay, we've also got the pit stop to factor into this that we didn't have to worry about in GT World Challenge Europe Esports. We'll come back all through this corner because the cars now make the run up towards the timing line. If the race director is happy, then he will give the signal to get our first GT World Challenge Asia Esports Championship presented by Tarmac Works race underway. It is Joseph de Jesus then on pole position with him at the front of the grid. King Long Lee then the pole position driver slightly in advance. The lights go out. The green flag shown. We're racing at Monza then. History in the making. Already one driver comes up with a drive-through penalty, which is Andika Malana. But as they run down towards the first of the chicanes, it is Joseph de Jesus who has got the advantage, but he's coming under attack. Long lead right round the outside. There's drama in the pack as well. There's a spinning Porsche. So it's not just the first corner that has given strife. It's the run into the first corner. Can they survive it? Most of them have. Battle raging on. Look, third and fourth run side by side. Terry Rayton is in the mix, and the race leaders go through the Curva Grande for the first time. So has Joseph de Jesus been able to hang on to that race lead? The answer is yes. And now, Ben, he's trying to get away.
Yeah, absolutely. In a battle, a challenge for third position side by side between the two Mercedes through the second chicane around the outside. Presumably isn't going to work up at each other. So O'Hara in the BMW moves up into second position. And that drive-through penalty you were talking about will have been for being out of position at the start of the race. An automatic penalty from inside the game.
So there's mayhem going on really behind the race leader as everybody finds themselves on the wrong line. And look at the gap pulled already over just, half a lap of the race by Joseph de Jesus. He is getting away. Now, find a driver that might want to hang on to second place. It looks as though it is going to be Andrew O'Hara then, the Australian in the BMW, is best of the rest as they drop down towards the Variante Ascari for the first time. And you're right about the numbers of Mercedes. They're all being competitive, but many of them trying to merge with each other on the first lap. Andika Maulana in 889 has copped a penalty already. He's battling with Charles Teixeira as the cars accelerate down towards the Parabolica. All of this scrapping, Ben, just playing right into the hands of the race leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Another drive-through penalty, I think, would have been for track limits. The system inside the game can detect if you gain an advantage by running over the track limits outside of the white lines, and it will instantly give you a penalty if you are too fast. So effectively, very easy here at Monza. If you go too fast over a chicane and you're deemed to maybe gain half a second to a second, then you'll get a penalty. Side by side into turn 1.
Fantastic racing, isn't it? Got an hour to go of this yet as they drop into the chicane. So it is De Jesus leading, O'Hara second, Lee is third, and then fourth on the road is Maulana. Battle on coming out of the first chicane, which includes there more of the Mercedes. You've also got 91 Terry Rayton in the Laundry House Lamborghini. There it is. And Rayton is coming under attack as he goes through the Curva Grande now, because right there with him in 390, Jan Laplore with his M6, another of the Waco's flip table cars. Hard on the brakes into the second chicane. If you hung out to dry on the outside line there, life gets awkward, and there's contact. There was a Mercedes, I think, off the road as well. It's all shuffling again, Ben.
Absolutely, lots and lots of work to be done. And of course, if they are stuck in traffic, they have the ability to dive into the pits. You can take your pit stop at any time. There is no window. And so if they feel like they're being held up and they can't get any track position here, going into the pits, taking an early stop and finding yourself some clear air could pay dividends come the end of the race if you don't really need to do any servicing of your car.
Now riding on board here in 390, Jan Laplore's Waco's flip table racing entry. Hard at work, look through the Variante Ascari once again. Now he needs a good run here. He doesn't get it. He's all sideways and he's hit the wall. Big impact. The car ricochets off the barrier back onto the tarmac. He survives all of that. Loses places, yes, but that could have been a whole lot worse in the real world.
Yeah, and he'll be picking up damage from that. You might not necessarily see it in the sim, but he will feel huge damage. When he goes into the pits, he has the option to repair that damage, but it's going to compromise his speed down the straights. You already spoke about being aerodynamically efficient. That is the way to hamper your top speed massively in Aceto Corsa Competizione. Look, 3 pit stoppers already.
One of which is the drive-through, isn't it, for Maulana? So he's getting that served, of course, which he needs then to add to his other pit stop. 326 gaining ground there under braking Philippe Boquida. The Australian gains 1 spot there, up into 8th now. Andrew Lawrenson's Porsche 911 dropping back, so he is falling away a little bit. It is still De Jesus leading, and nearly 2 seconds to the good now. Mercedes leads BMW. The best of the Italian stallions runs in 6th place. The Lamborghini in the hands of Terry Rayton, and another battle on there. Look, Lawrenson's 911 goes round the outside and picks up a place at the expense of Youngcham Kim. So the Rapido sim racing entry of the Korean falls back into the pack now. Andrew Lawrenson back up into 8th place.
I have to say, very impressive by O'Hara in that BMW to be holding on to 2nd position at the moment. Okay, helped quite a lot by the Mercedes squabbling around him, but really, the BMW shouldn't be that high up. It's not a car that is very preferred around Monza, and actually not really a car that's particularly strong, thanks to the BOP, generally in Aceto Corsa Competizione.
Well, as you say, he's doing a ripper job at the moment then, as the drivers accelerate with still just under 55 minutes to go down to the Variante Ascari. Lights on, an overcast afternoon, it is safe to say, here at Monza. There the Lexus, number 15, again adding to the variety. Nakib Aslam, the Malaysian driver. Whoops, a little bit of correction needed as he powers his way now onto that fast straight down to the Parabolica once more. And he's about to get done, isn't he? Because 99 McLaren of Pai Wen-Wook comes up alongside. Round the outside there is Aero versus the shape of a brick. The McLaren has the advantage, but on the outside line, it's a longer, slower line. He has to sit back behind, but I think Wu now, Ben, should have the advantage on the run down past the pits as another one goes for the pit lane. Yeah,
amazing to see quite a few taking pit stops so early on, and that's really going to confuse things later on when we've got half the field who have pitted, and we don't really have a way to... Oh, no, we do have a way to know. The little orange number 1 beside the graphic is a way to know whether they have taken their pit stop or not, and therefore another little bit of information for you as the viewer to understand what's going on. That was missing in the Charity Cup, so it's great to have that as a feature now in this full season.
So that's 1 pit stop to take rather than 1 taken, isn't it? So they'll disappear when they've served them, So De Jesus still leads the way, but he's not escaping, is he? The margin is still hovering around that 1.7 second mark. Andrew O'Hara holding his own in a sense in 2nd place, but it's interesting, isn't it, seeing how people play this pit stop without a window. Do you get it done early and then concentrate on the race, or do you try and build up a lead and serve it right towards the very end? Andrew
I think
Lawrenson in the Porsche. Sorry, Ben, just having a go. I was also going to offer you a thought about not just pit stops, but Monza in general. When we had the very first Charity Cup race here for the GT World Challenge Europe series, if you like, fuel consumption was quite a talking point, wasn't it, as well?
It was, and you couldn't, if I seem to remember, you couldn't do a full race on map 1, so the most thirsty of maps. You had to turn it down to map 2 for some of the cars, but not all of them. I think Mercedes was one of them, McLaren was not. But that's a nice little pass from Zen. Nice switchback move, and he now has the inside line and up to 10th position.
And that puts him ahead of young champ Kim in the McLaren. So Mercedes goes ahead up into the top 10, as Ben rightly says. But look, Kim fights back on the inside line there. Is he going to be able to make the move? No, he's not thought about it. Brake late. Whoops, contact there because right into the back of the McLaren. That, I'm afraid, turns around 55. That is Guimon Kim. So he was tagged by the 10th placed Mercedes. And that, I'm afraid, might well force a penalty, mightn't it? Because that was just too late on the brakes. Contact made. And the innocent McLaren of Guimon hit Kim out of contention now.
Kim is one of those guys that actually we've seen participate globally in some of the competitions that have kind of headlined Aceto Corsa Competizione over the last year. So he has real experience, not just in Asian competitions, but against the world's best, and marginally missed out on qualifying for a prize drive at Imola in a Lamborghini Huracan, which I think is actually happening today and tomorrow. So some of the very best ACC drivers from Europe are enjoying the spoils of a prize drive thanks to this platform and thanks to being some of the very best.
Now straight away, look on the graphic there, 94 of Yin Zheng, class winner in the Charity Cup race, don't forget. He's got a drive through, so that can presumably be put down to the contact going down towards turn 1, can't it?
Just having a look to see, because that was very, very fast from the race director to make that decision, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer than that, but maybe we do have real world, yes we do actually, we have a real world stewards, human stewards looking at those kind of incidents, and that's where those penalties can then be applied externally. Rather than coming from inside the game. The game will dictate starting procedures and track limits, and then the human will do contact and the like.
Okay, I'm looking at the stewarding channel where the steward is typing at this very moment.
Yes.
Meantime, riding on board there with Ferris Stanley in the Ferrari. That's a long, long way down, isn't it? The best of the Ferraris. So having talked about you need an aero-friendly car, well, Ferris at the moment 11th spot, but he's going after Kim. So Young Chan Kim there, look in the pink McLaren coming under attack, and they concertina as they break for the corner. Yin Zheng in that 9th place with his Damocletian drive through still hanging over him.
So you can see 21st position. Wong is the first of our drivers to have made a pit stop. It goes green once they've pitted, but he falls off the list because he's doing it right at this second.
And
was that in the middle of the track?
I was going to say debris in the middle of the road there from somebody who's disgraced themselves early on. So you can get the damage on the cars as in the real world. You can get the debris on the track as in the real world. So battles on here. Charles Fessera is in 13th place in the number 5 Mercedes. Comes out of the Craft Bamboo Racing Stable, one of the real world GT teams, touring car teams as well. But O'Hara in 2nd place is dropping back now, is he not, from the race leader, because getting away is Joseph de Jesus. Look back further in the pack. Charles Fessera is charging along behind 117. Kelvin Chen with his Porsche 911, the 991 iteration of the 911 within Aceto Corsa Competizione. Down through the Parabolica goes number 5 Mercedes, and Charles Fessera for the moment not close enough, Ben, to think about attacking.
No, he's not. Just looking at the lap times that are being done right now, a 48.0 is from some of our better drivers at the head of the field. The first 2 equal on pace with Carl Pedersen in 4th, 5th and 6th, but they have been in the 47s. Kim to the outside. Difficult to overtake and make that stick. You really have to squeeze your competitor, but he chose the right way, didn't he?
Did indeed. So shuffles around once again. Number 17 there is Mika Hakimi, the Malaysian for the Legacy Racing Team Malaysia, and his Mercedes then drops back one spot. The recovering 55 of Guaiwen Kim goes through. The CJ Logistic Racing Team entry, the Korean, one of the pros within this, gets ahead, but he might not necessarily stay there because Hakimi right on his tail, knows to tail those two. It's fascinating, isn't it, to see, and it's the same in any GT event, real world or sim, how the different shapes and sizes and configurations of the cars have their strengths and their weaknesses. So you've got the aero-friendly McLaren versus the grunt and go Mercedes. Battle on here as well as Young Cham Kim comes under attack. Ferris Stanley in that Ferrari as the race goes on, Ben, he's getting a bit stronger, isn't he?
I think that we saw this from our Ferraris in the Challenge Europe series, that they didn't necessarily star, but they were a consistent car that you could get to the flag without losing too much pace, and they looked after their Pirelli tyres very well. So I think we should keep an eye on, there's not many Ferraris in this field, but we should certainly keep an eye on their pace throughout the whole of the race. Ferris, his last lap was a 48.45, so that's a couple of tenths off the ultimate fastest right now, and Jesus just doing a 47.9.
Yes, Jesus Cecilia, just to explain, where the gremlin crops up, was the man that won the Sim series within the GT World Challenge Europe Esports Championship that Ben and I covered at the start of the year, and he was an absolute standout. He was the only double winner. He coped better than anybody with bad conditions, and that is why he is in our minds, because he proved to be a real star, as Joseph de Jesus, the fourth, he's proving to be right now, because he's getting away 2.7 seconds to the good. Battle on here. Look, number 99 through on the inside line. Pai Wen Wu goes through. That puts another of the McLarens one further place up ahead of the Lexus then. So that, number 33, is Philip Chan dropping back a place.
So just to pick up on a couple of things for your virtual program, 21 degrees air temperature, 26 degrees track temperature. I'm thinking that we are late in the day, 4:22, and if this is the winter, if this is this time of year, then actually it kind of reflects how it might be at Monza with an overcast day. Although 21 degrees is a bit generous, I would have thought.
Well, you know, global warming in the real world or in the virtual world, Ben, it happens, it changes the climate. What you do have, just as in real world Monza racing, are some good scraps going on. 99 then of Pai Wen Wu goes through in 16th place, but he's got a bit of work to do, hasn't he, to get onto terms now with Scott Blair. The L19 Racing Ferrari is the next car up the road, but he's got to make up the best part of 3 seconds.
And I think it's possible, looking at the lap times, he's taking chunks away from both Scott and Mika Hakimi ahead. In fact, Mika had a very slow lap last time. Not sure whether that's his pace now, but they are definitely not anywhere near the pace that they should be. And here, in fact, is Scott now tucked under the rear wing of Hakimi. And let's see on this lap whether he's managed to regain some pace, having, as I said, done a 51 last time, back into the 49. So, yes, he has found some pace, but still under pressure.
Of course, the other element of this for many of them is it's the first time they will have raced against some of these drivers at this level, and Hakimi has been reeled in by Blair, hasn't he, then, as they come into turn one then through the Prima Variante. The Ferrari, the lemon and lime Ferrari, green and yellow in its livery, loses out a little bit on exit, doesn't it? Good in a straight line, but not quite so good out of that very slow turn two, the exit of the Prima Variante.
Of course, remember, all GT3 cars have traction control available to them and ABS settings. You can turn it up from 0 to 10, and the idea really is to try and minimise the usage of that traction control, allow the car to move around a little bit, and really the pro drivers kind of turn it off, don't they, David? They make sure that it's not really affecting the way the car feels. When the AMs get into a GT3 car, and of course the GT3 car is made for them, then they turn the traction control up, and what the traction control does is limit the ability to get out of corners. So if you've got it a little bit too high, limiting the slip too much, then that might be one of the reasons why Blair is struggling out of corners.
One thing we've heard, haven't we, from real world and sim world drivers is the different feel, because of course in a real world car you have the feel of the car through your backside. You don't have that within a sim car. It's why the sim drivers perhaps can't adapt instantly to real world, and vice versa. It's a different feeling for the real world drivers when they take to the sim. Now, on board here, 73 Ferrari, Ferris Stanley at the wheel of it. Number 4 is up the road, Young Champ Kim with the McLaren, and now the Ferrari is going to try and have a look to the inside line. It's got the gap. If Stanley braked really late, the place might be his, but he's going to be compromised because even though he's on the inside for turn 1, it's the outside for turn 2. Side by side they run. Now, who's got the better drive out of the corner? It's the McLaren. The McLaren goes back ahead then. Ferris Stanley stands his ground on the inside line going up towards the Curva Grande. There is the gap. Look, the McLaren just drifts ever so slightly out wide. But even as he does so, Kim will still have the line going into the Seconda Variante. Here he comes now, hard on the brakes. The Ferrari can't find a way through, even though it was elbows out there.
Yeah, clever driving, just putting himself really in the middle of the road to almost force the Ferrari to be on the outside going into that second chicane. If he'd allowed him to get the inside line, I think we'd have seen something different, but running very wide there, that will be a warning for the McLaren. It might not necessarily pick... Oh, they're both off the road now. They're not gaining time now, are they?
So the Monza Rallycross circuit's in use. More contact there. Look lower down the order as 44, Mohamed Afik Farid, rattles his way through on the inside. That was a bit robust, but it's gained him one spot then, so through he has gone. But yes,
yeah, some unusual cars there. We've got, that's the Lexus and the Nissan. We don't see too many of either of those cars. And there is also a Honda that seems to be very under... I love it as a car, but unfortunately it's not very fast. So it doesn't get chosen very often.
No, it's a car that's had mixed outings in real-world racing. There, Charles Fessera goes to the inside line, hoping to pick up a place there. Look at the expense of Kelvin Chen, and the Porsche gets hung out to dry on the outside line. The Mercedes rumbles through up into 11th place. So Charles Fessera now is on the attack, isn't he? Bit by bit, working his way through the order. Now hits 11th place as they break the timing beam down towards the first chicane once more.
Am I right in saying Fessera was compromised at the start? I'm sure he started higher up than where he is right now. He was certainly one of our leading contenders in the charity race, so feels like he's not quite in the right place right now.
Yeah, he was on the second row of the grid, qualified third, so you're right, he was compromised. As there, Ferris Stanley goes round the outside of Young Cham Kim, but the McLaren just looks the quicker of the two, so Ferris Stanley is going to have to be really brave on the brakes now, up to the second chicane, and through he goes, and he's worked hard for that.
Yeah, and lovely little move. As I say, he got the inside line this time, and McLaren wasn't able to hold him to the outside, and that was how he made it through. Now he's going to set off and hopefully clear that McLaren. He's got a big old gap to the next car ahead of him.
Yeah, Philippe Baquida is the next one, but actually, now that he's been released, he doesn't have to think about attacking. He's concentrating on his lap times, on his lines, and he is chipping away, isn't it? It's another of these McLarens to try and have a go at Baquida. So there, the lapped Audi gets out of the way, slots back into the traffic behind, but Philippe Baquida, yeah, nearly 10 seconds up the road. Let's see whether he is going to be caught before much longer.
Not sure why Audi's not so chosen as well. That is a car that performs incredibly well in GT3 spec racing, has won the 24 Hours of Spa many a time, and is always a front runner. But for some reason in the sim, it doesn't... I think it might be down, not necessarily to pace, but more to being able to drive it close to the limit throughout the race. I think it's a bit of an edgy car. And you sometimes have these cars that are very fast, but it's hard to get them and get the speed out of them lap after lap after lap without them trying to throw you off the track.
Yeah, we did have one good day, didn't we, from the Audis? Was it the Spa rounds of the GT World Challenge Europe Esports series? But you're right, they haven't been that popular a car, and even the real world drivers have struggled with them in the sim world when we had that championship at the start of the season. Treble 7 down to the Parabolica. Niranjan Kumar, the Indian driver, in another of the Lexus. This from the IR Esports team. And is he heading for the mandatory stop? No, just a tight line, but there is a pit stopper ahead. So bit by bit now, Ben, we are starting to see, as we approach the halfway point, some more of these mandatory stops being served.
Yeah, and as some of our top runners come in, I think we will have a chance to take a look at the stop. You don't get a chance to see mechanics working on the car or even the wheels coming off the car, but the length of stop will indicate if any servicing is being done on the car. They do have to take at least 1 litre of fuel, but that's that's a second, not even a second. The question will be if anyone decides to do tyres and have a pace advantage in the second half of the race. 25 seconds penalty for doing so and being stationary. Is there a 25-second advantage in half an hour's worth of racing? It depends on how hard you're being on them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And how does the pit stop work? I mean, in the real world, you drive down the pit lane, you stop, mechanics come out, put a litre of fuel in, move the fuel churn, you drive away, back onto the track. How will it work for the drivers in a sim race like this?
Exactly the same thing. They'll have to make sure they hit the pit lane speed limiter at the right point. Speeding is very, very, very easy to do if you get it wrong and if you don't time it perfectly. As we see another little battle there. Is that a battle? No, I think it's a bit of lappery going on. And then you have to select your various options, whether you want more or less fuel, whether you want to change tyres or not, and then stop on your marks, hit your marks perfectly. Once you do that, then automatically the game will just hold you. Unfortunately, you don't see the mechanics coming out like you do on other arcade games. And then the timer ticks down until you're released. And then you make sure that you press the pit lane speed limiter on exit and back into the race.
Just as in the real world. Right there in 23rd place is the number 21 Nissan of Luis Moreno. And he in turn is looking for a place, isn't he? Because 94, which is Yin Zheng, is just up the road ahead of him. As I say, that was the driver, Zheng, who won his class within the Charity Cup race at the end of August. So he's got good pace, but don't forget he is at the moment struggling really to get up with the established pro drivers within this race. So not where you'd expect to find him. Even though he's good, he's not quite delivering what we might have anticipated.
Yeah, and again, in a Nissan is a tricky beast around here for sure. It's not really suited to this track, especially as you were talking about the kind of the slippery aerodynamics needed. So probably not the preferred car, and there really is, an effect. All these cars feel very different. This is an absolute simulation of the World Challenge as a whole, as GT3 and now GT4 racing as a whole. And this is a little battle that's been brewing. I've seen this on the timing screens, and now the Leighton House, but not Laundry House cars are starting to put the Mercedes under pressure.
Absolutely. So can the Laundry House clean up here? They've got, at the moment, 4th and 5th, haven't they? Lawrenson ahead of Peterson as they come wriggling their way out of the chicane, but it is Lee under pressure. Look, that's the fight on for 3rd place just up the road. Andrew Lawrenson gets squeezed towards the grass. King Longley in the Mercedes stands his ground on the inside, but the Laundry House Porsche tries to get up alongside to no avail. Switches sides now, but that's going to be the wrong line again, isn't it? Coming up towards the Seconda Variante. So the Waco's Mercedes keeps that 3rd position, but Lawrenson is throwing everything at this, and right there behind him is Carl Peterson with the Laundry House Mercedes. Again, Lawrenson makes his move, but it's the wrong line.
He's lucky, I think, that he's got a teammate behind him who's being very, very careful not to get involved here, because he's putting himself really on the wrong racing line. And if he had a more attacking teammate behind, or anyone behind, they'd be jamming it up the inside. As it happens, he's getting away with it, and robust defence from Longley, but I'm not sure how long he'll be able to do that.
And then look behind them as well, because in 6th place, number 62, Fadli Rahmat, he is closing up as well in the Mercedes. So you're right, he's got a teammate behind who's looking after him, being patient and kind. But if they don't get on with the job, they're going to be reeled in by, you can see it closing, that 6th place Mercedes. 7th is another of the Laundry House entries, Terry Rayton's Lamborghini, and Baquila is in 8th place in his McLaren. So this battle pack is going to get larger and larger for as long as that Mercedes is the cork in the bottle.
Yeah, and actually they are, by doing so, they are also allowing O'Hara to get a little bit of a gap. The last couple of laps, O'Hara has been being reeled in by this lot, but with all this battling, it's allowing him a bit of breathing space.
Right, Lawrenson again challenges. This is for 3rd. It's the outside line for turn 1, which will translate to the inside line for turn 2. But he can't level going into the corner, so he has to slot back in behind. Now he tries the outside line, but that's going to leave the door open to the Mercedes, Peterson, if he's not careful. So Lawrenson is in danger of not gaining, but actually losing a place. And look now at Rahmat. He is virtually with them in 6th place. So the number 62 Mercedes ready to join that party. Kang Long Lee really is getting in the way as far as Andrew Lawrenson is concerned, and he's tried most things at most places over that last lap.
Yeah, I wonder whether Pedersen, being in a different class, the red numbers on the left-hand side, and in fact in the windscreen as well, are our qualified drivers. They're the ones that had to go through a hot lapping contest to qualify to be part of the race. The white numbers are the pros that have kind of automatically qualified, if you like, because of their results so far. And I wonder if Pedersen's being kind because they're actually, although they're teammates, they're not in the same class. And he knows that because he knows exactly and will have been practicing with teammates at Laundry House over the last couple of months.
Might be right, but equally, from Peterson's point of view, he doesn't want to lose that second in class, and Rahmat is closing on him. He's another of the AMs, so as Ben rightly says, 2 classes, pros and AMs within this, and you can see how that line of cars is growing. So 62 Mercedes of Fadli Rahmat now closing on Carl Peterson. They're almost together, as still Andrew Lawrenson is stuck behind the Mercedes of Kin Long Lee as they come off the parabolic and now ready to power their way up past the pits. Nose to tail, those 2 cars run. Race Lee, and into the pits goes Lee. That is great news for Lawrenson because suddenly the road is clear. He couldn't find a way past, but he will benefit on the pit stops. And that's the first significant stopper, isn't it? Number 6 Mercedes, third when it pits.
Right, so let's keep an eye on how long he's in the pits, because he was certainly struggling for pace over those last couple of laps. Maybe it was down to simply having to defend from the Porsche, but however long he stays in the pits will give us an indication as to what he is servicing and how long he's stationary in the pits. He may, if he was struggling with tyres, take some tyres and try and get some pace in. But I don't think there was that much stationary time there. He's going to leave the pit stop with, 28 seconds in total. So I think that is literally in and out.
Okay, so it's going to be interesting to see where he is in the last few laps of the race relative to everybody else once they've all served the pit stops. You can see how he's dropping down through the pack now as the cars dive through that first chicane. Third when he came in, 10th falls to 11th, falls to 12th to 13th, and he's still fighting for position. Where's he going to be? 19th, I reckon. 20th potentially even now, because around the outside of him there goes Yin Zheng. Yeah, so Zheng will go through, just gets his nose in front. That's going to put our pit stopper down into 20th place as they come up towards the second chicane. So King Long Lee down into 20th spot, having served that stop, but 28 seconds, we now know is what you're looking at, pit in to pit out.
And presumably that is if you don't do any servicing of your car whatsoever. So anything longer shouldn't necessarily be fuel. No one really should be taking fuel. It will be a significant if anybody needs to take tyres. But ultimately, thinking about it more and more, I just don't think that that's really going to be a viable strategy. And it didn't work out for our drivers when we had our Suzuka race, of course, a different track. So you never can tell. But ultimately, I think really in and out just to tick the box.
But they have to take on 1 litre of fuel, don't they? Now, how much is a litre compared to a lap? Is it a lap? Is it 2? Is it 1 corner? How much of Monza does a litre's worth of fuel translate to? Do we know?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think it's about 4 or 5 litres per lap.
Okay, so it's a bit of a lap's worth of fuel. Yeah, okay. So that 1 litre under the regulations is, in a sense, not even a splash and dash, is it? Because it's not going to get you more than a corner.
No, exactly.
Okay, 44 is Solof Foninira Rahali in the Porsche, and that is the BMR Racing Team entry that is about to lose out because the recovering Maulana, remember he had a drive-through earlier on, goes round the outside, so Andika Maulana goes ahead of the Porsche. The pseudo Rover Racing colours on 44 Porsche, but it's dropping back in the pack now. So Maulana recovering from the drive-through, but he's also, of course, got to serve his regulation stop, hasn't he? So at the moment, this is a phony 15th for Maulana because he's going to slide all the way down again when he makes the regulation pit stop, Ben.
Oh, big contact.
That was Yin Zhang getting into the Nissan, and the Porsche is off as well. Rahali is off the road. Now, he may have been collected by the errant Nissan, but either way, we've got 2 cars in strife at the second chicane, haven't we?
Didn't see. I think he was tagged, and perhaps the Porsche was an innocent bystander there, but we didn't see. But, you know, there could have been a car out of control that took him off, and now back up and running again. Again, doesn't look damaged, but will feel damage to the driver.
Certainly the Nissan got tagged, and I think you're probably right. I fear that as it was having its drama, the Porsche was wiped out. Andrew Lawrenson is serving his pit stop, by the way, so the car that was running in had just inherited 3rd place. Andrew Lawrenson is now in the pit road, so it's becoming more important now to monitor these stops. Yes, Ben?
and our leader is. You can't see him on the timing tower there, but our leader is in the pits. Should be leaving the pits now. Actually, he's spending a bit longer in pit lane. 32. No, he's still in the pits. So a longer stop for him. Maybe he is taking tyres.
Okay, so there is the recovering Rahali. And Rahali to the pit lane maybe this time because of damage. Yep, so in comes number 44, Porsche then.
Curious. Those two are now back out onto circuit, but curious to see their pit stops seem to be longer than we saw from who was it that came in Long Lee earlier on. So let's see where he falls into line.
Okay. So this is always one of the fascinations of pit stop races, isn't it? You can get things wrong in the pits. The team can get things wrong, even if it's a virtual team, I guess. So the race order is all going to be shuffled around while we have these mandatory stops being served. See there, the Nissans out on track. Still great charismatic GT3 cars, the Nissans. They're getting a bit long in the tooth, but they are good to watch. No argument about it. Number 85 of Andy Gann. Tarmac car through.
Yes, now look.
King Long Lee ahead of Josef de Jesus. So he's lost out, hasn't he? Josef de Jesus has lost out on the pit stops.
Very, very interesting. Long Lee did not service anything. I think de Jesus and Lawrenson have taken tyres, even if it's 2 tyres, and that's why their stops were long. It's definitely demonstrated there because de Jesus had a 15-second advantage over Long Lee before the stops, at least, I think.
Yeah, certainly he'd scarred it, hadn't he? So you've got Andrew Lawrenson, who had just got 3rd place. I mean, he in turn should be, I anticipate, a reasonable way back from de Jesus, but it's all shuffled around on those pit stops. So a longer stop by the led stint 1. And actually, at the moment, he's not staying on the back of King Long Lee. He's dropped a couple of lengths through the parabolica.
Tyres will be cold though. It'll take a little bit of time to get the tyres back up to operating temperature. I would imagine that, yes, he'll lose a bit of time now. Long Lee's been on those tyres, and if he didn't change them, they'll already have the temperature in them. If we suggest that de Jesus did change them, he'll have a pace advantage later on in the race for sure. But right now, he'll be on colder tyres.
Interesting, though, that he's dropped back by such a margin. And also you can see the way that King Long Lee is a bit stuck, isn't he? Because Kin is there on the tail of the Mercedes of Yin Zhang, which has had a busy old race with a bit of contact here. He runs out of road at the chicane, clatters over the curb. Kin Long Lee hopefully will have the advantage to be able to now go powering past, but no, he's still stuck behind. So he is arguably working the car, working his already worn tyres even harder than the man behind, just biding his time, assessing the situation. Josef de Jesus then comes now out of the Lesmo curve, seeing this battle going on ahead of him.
Now, what do you do if you're Andrew O'Hara, Carl Pedersen at the head of the field now, hopefully knowing by either teammates watching this stream or by watching in game that those drivers took tyres, will have a pace advantage, but have compromised their track position for the moment, whereas Long Lee didn't. Presumably, all of these sim drivers will have spent plenty of time simulating the various different scenarios here. Is it better to do a full hour on the tyres? Oh, and Lawrence has picked up a drive-through. That's significant, down in 18th position.
It is indeed, isn't it? So Andrew Lawrenson, who had just got himself into 3rd before the pit stops, gets a drive-through penalty. Now, what is that for? We aren't seeing any news in the stewarding channel about it, so we'll try and go in-game to find out. There, 22 losing out is Bank Thanatip, but the car that he's squabbling against runs way, way wide coming off the parabolica. So there, as the cars accelerate towards the timing line, in for the drive-through, look comes 9-11. So that is Andrew Lawrenson back in.
Yeah, and it says it came from race control, so that's in-game penalty, either speeding in the pit lane, but I don't think it came straight away, so could well have been simply track limits.
Okay, but right now, there, look, number 6 Mercedes, Kin Long Lee, that is the best placed car of those that have made the regulation stop, isn't it?
Yep, 14th position, and as you say, still slightly dropping Jesus Cecilia. What's the lap time last time? And a 48.8 for Cecilia to a 48.4 from Kin Long Lee. My only question is, can those tyres on his car survive the full race distance without dropping off a cliff? He'll have to have been very careful on them if that's the case.
Indeed. So Joseph de Jesus is the man doing the chasing, and that gap widening a touch at the moment as they're going out of the Lesmo curves. Number 27, the Unity in Diversity Aston Martin of Ryan Adisaputra. So the Indonesian driver, which again illustrates the many different nationalities that we have represented in this sim entry. 45 goes through then. That is Alwi Shahab with the Nissan, but he's lost out on track there to the charging McLaren.
I think it's so cool, David, to have so many different countries. So many different countries that you don't necessarily see represented in global real-world motorsport, let alone in the sim racing world. And it kind of demonstrates to me how sim racing opens up the opportunity for people to participate in motorsport generally, regardless of the country that they're in.
Go along with that, yes. Houlihan in the McLaren there, you just saw gaining a place. He was a very late entry, so even at the 11th hour, people adding themselves to the entry list. Now, Kin Long Lee is still stuck. We've had another pit stopper. 55 is in. That is Guimin Kim. We'll see where he falls back to as off the road. He's about to rattle. Number 31, that's Russell Reyes with the Sim Racing PH Audi. The Philippine driver losing a spot to the Aston Martin of Adisaputra there, but you could see that was all wrong coming into the braking zone, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That was good work from our TV director to pick that one up at the last minute. I'm just having a look at the pace of our leaders. The top three are doing 48.1s. De Jesus, going to get that right by the end of the race, is not matching that pace, and therefore virtually will be losing ground to the guys at the front of the field, although O'Hara in the BMW now pits. So let's keep an eye on the clock for his pit stop.
Okay, so he's put himself into the race lead from number 90, Carl Peterson, and then up into third after the pit stops. But he served his as well. Adli Rahmat, who we saw in that Vortex SimSport Mercedes catching up to the traffic. But Kin Long Lee here is still stuck behind in J94 Mercedes, who has yet to serve his mandatory stop, and Lee just can't find a way past him. Here you've got the BOP working so well, of course. Two Mercedes very evenly matched, and Lee is stuck. So if the leaders are released into clear air, then he's really going to be on the back foot, isn't he?
Well, look, O'Hara has already cleared the pits. He's out already. It was a short stop. It was about 29 seconds in total. And he's got a huge advantage now over De Jesus, who was 4 or 5 seconds ahead of him. O'Hara has put himself right in the mix of things now, and maybe an indication how some of the other laundry house cars will choose to do their pit stops over the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, although one of them, Andrew Lawrenson, of course, had to go back in, didn't he, for his drive-through penalty. So one or two of them have got it right, one or two have got it wrong. But you can see, we talked early on about this, didn't we, being released into traffic. That's exactly what has happened to Kin Long Lee, and he can't get through the traffic. So he's absolutely stuck for the moment. So O'Hara, 9th after the pit stop, at the best of the stoppers. So really the race now is between him and Kin Long Lee, who is still stuck in the traffic. It is advantage BMW, isn't it?
Amazingly, I really, it's amazing to have a BMW so high up in the field. No disrespect to BMW, but they really aren't the chosen car. We saw them, we saw it perform very well, remember, in kind of mixed conditions when it was rainy, dry. Yeah. But other than that, you never really see a BMW this high up in this platform. I must stress that. BMW as a global, they've just won in the Indianapolis 8-hour race. They also won the Nürburgring 24 hours. Yeah. So, they're a fantastic brand. But, pit stops now for Pedersen and Bakida.
Leading gang of cars, Motorsports. So Carl Peterson, Am, or Laundry House, he comes in to serve his stop. We're looking at number 27 still, which is Ryan Aston Martin, the advantage coming down to the parabolica, and on the tail trying to get his pace back, Russell Reyes with the Audi. There it is, number 31, the R8 LMS Evo of Sim Racing PH, the Philippine driver accelerating now up towards the line. He's on the back of the Indonesian. They head past the pits with just under 19 minutes of the race to go.
Yeah, so short stops for Pedersen and Bakida. They are appearing on our timing screens at the very top, and they have fallen into line. Well, Andrew O'Hara still has a massive advantage in comparison to Bakida. Bakida, I think, is behind De Jesus.
Okay.
And Pedersen is in virtually 8th position. So really interesting what's going on pit stopping wise for our leading contenders right now, whilst we watch 29th position. So Shahab, 29th with a pit stop. There's only a couple of drivers now not to have taken their stops. And this is a nice little battle as Shahab lines up the Lamborghini, looks to the inside, and Lamborghini decides to turn in. Now, all the drivers will have a heads-up display. They will know when they've got a car around them. They will have a little red dot as soon as... it's an orange dot that turns red as soon as there's an overlap. Interesting battle here with a Bentley, a Nissan and a Lamborghini all playing. And actually, we mentioned the Honda. There is the Honda at the... Is that a Honda at the back of this pack? No, it's a Mercedes, but there is a Honda around this group of cars as well. Oh, contact! Such a shame. Fandip gets removed out of the battle. Didn't see exactly what happened there, and Shahab has actually backed off to try and give that position back. He obviously felt like it was his fault. Now the Bentley does the same thing as well. Very gentlemanly driving going on as the Mercedes gets a little bit loose through the second of our Lesmos. And Lamborghini is going to get back into the lead of the group in just a few seconds' time. And very gentlemanly orange cars that have fallen to the tail of that little group.
So that's going to put Terry Rayton, is it not, into the lead of the race now in that Lamborghini. So that was an important pass there. And having got himself up front, is number 91 then, the Australian driver, going to be able to break away? The other one to factor into this, I guess, Ben, still is Andrew O'Hara, the best of the stoppers.
Yeah, so that's why I was a little confused, because those two orange cars are actually a lap down, aren't they? And this is this is the battle for the lead of the race that was part of it. Now Rayton takes to the pit, so time to monitor how long he spends in pit lane. And we've still got the top 5 that have not pitted yet. Blair and Hakimi, fast drivers that should be in the stops. And Rachim, I think, before the stops was up into 4th position. So interesting to see where Rayton falls back into line as Youngchan Kim also pits.
Yes, indeed, he comes in. So that's now going to elevate number 64 for the moment, isn't it? Scott Blair with the Ferrari. There is Charles Teixeira going over the timing line. And also number 17 Mercedes through, which is Mika Hakimi, and he has yet to serve a stop as well. More of them coming out of the pits in the background, including the Rayton Lamborghini. Where will that one blend in? We'll have to wait and see.
Rayton 29.4, so that's a quick stop from him. Still waiting on Kim, but I don't really think that Kim is part of the battle. So let's see where Rayton falls back into line, having now taken his stop. O'Hara really is a target, because I think O'Hara is virtually our race leader from Pedersen and Longley, and De Jesus down in 4th virtually now, right on the tail of Longley, but still unable to get past him. Let's keep an eye on Longley's and actually all of our short stoppers' tyres and pace to make sure in the remaining 50 minutes of the race they can get to the end without losing too much pace. And that will be the only advantage, really, for Joseph De Jesus. I can't imagine that he would have made a mistake to choose the tyres when it was the wrong way to go. He is the best, he is the most experienced, and he's the fastest. So I think it could have been, could be a risk from some of the others.
Yeah, it makes you think there was a plan in all of that, doesn't it? Now, it's got us 7th place, knows us. That puts him ahead, finally, of Kin Long Lee. So it is now De Jesus going after Peterson, who is an AM. So you've got an AM being chased by a pro, although Peterson has just got himself up past Maulana. So what are we looking at? About 4 seconds between Peterson and De Jesus, with one car involved there as well. So O'Hara has got 5.4 plus 2 tenths plus 3.6 of a gap over De Jesus. And in 14 minutes to go, it's a big ask for the man that led early on, unless, as Ben rightly suggests, tyre wear is going to come into it. There is Hakimi over the line. The top 3 yet to stop, so we can really discount them in a sense, can't we? And concentrate on O'Hara, who has just broken the beam, And a long way behind him, 5 seconds behind him, is Carl Peterson. So it really does look good, this, for O'Hara, doesn't it?
Amazingly, amazing. Let's just keep an eye, though, on the pace of those cars. A 48.6 from O'Hara last time through. It's not great, is it, in comparison to De Jesus, who did, he did a 48.0 last time, but on that lap, having passed Long Lee, he did a 48.8, so it did take a bit of pace. And, that is the other thing. By doing a longer stop, you put yourself in traffic, and every overtake does take a bit more time. It's not a case of, you can still do record pace and overtake people. You lose time by overtaking cars.
So this is the real race leader. It says P4, and the reason is that the cars ahead have not yet served a stop. But Andrew O'Hara here for the Bavarian Motorwerken is doing a really good job. The BMW M6 leads the way. He is the best of those that have stopped. He is ahead of Carl Peterson in second place. But interestingly as well, both of them drop into the AM category, don't they? So in a race of pros and AMs, not only is it a surprise that the BMW is looking so strong, but you've got an AM showing the pros how to do this.
And which is exactly what we saw in the Charity Cup race, because De Jesus was an AM at that point before being picked up by the Tarmac Motorsports team. So one of our sponsors actually creating an esports team for the event and having De Jesus as their lead driver now. So that's how he's moved into the pro category. And I think as this series progresses, I think we'll see that happen time again, because, sim racing generally is developing, it's growing, and in the Asian market, I think you will be seeing more teams form, perhaps real-world teams forming virtual teams for this series, and some of these red numbers will turn white by the end of the series.
And you can see why it is growing all the time, because it's given us some great action as an individual race. But you and I said it in the European events in that championship early in the season. You forget you're watching a sim race because the pictures are so good, the graphics are so good, so real, that you forget that this is simulation. Now there in third place is Hakimi, leaving his stop late. We've only got just over 11 and a half minutes to go. So are some of them thinking of rolling the dice, effectively starting that last lap even?
I don't know why you would. I don't really see any benefit for going this late into the race unless you're just in a rhythm. But you can see Hakimi still kind of holding on to that Mercedes. It's trying to get away from him through the first of the Lesmos. And now you see O'Hara in the background with a little bit of traffic to contend with. That's going to slow this pace. Last time was a 47.9, a really fast lap from O'Hara, which is quite impressive considering he is on worn tyres. But look, 2 more cars to get through, 10 minutes remaining. I don't think De Jesus is going to catch him, but certainly he's going to make a good go of it.
Question about the pit stop for you, which isn't meant to be a hospital pass, but do you have to leave the pit lane? You must come in and take on a litre of fuel, but if you were to do that and take the checkered flag in the pits, would that be acceptable?
It's a good question. However, think about where the finish line is here in Monza.
Yeah, that
it's
would
at
be
the
before
start
you
of pit.
got to your pit.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm thinking
so
Michael
you
Schumacher British Grand Prix in all of this, but yes,
yes.
it's a thought anyway. At other venues, it might be possible. So 10 minutes to go, and it is still Andrew O'Hara who is the best of the pit stoppers, from Carl Peterson, then Kin Long Lee, then Joseph De Jesus and Philippe Boquida. So Terry Rayton, after his stop, is running 10th on the road, but he will gain places, won't he, because of 1 or 2 more that have yet to serve their stops. In 2.24 there, that is Joseph De Jesus, and he's still looking for a way past King Long Lee, but he's absolutely stuck.
I thought he got past him. I think this might have swapped round again. I don't know if that's possible, but De Jesus did a 48.8 the last time through. Long Lee did a 48.0, so perhaps we've actually seen a change of position again.
I think you're right.
Yeah, so De Jesus not finding it very easy to sprint away. And I'm trying to rack my brain as to what he's done wrong here, why he's gone so long, because surely, if with a brand new set of tyres, he should be smashing the lap times in comparison to the guys around him, and he simply isn't.
And he got stuck in traffic, didn't he? It took him a long time it took both the Mercedes, in fairness, a long time to get past the similar car of Yin Zheng. De Jesus, you're right, was ahead. He's lost the place back again. So in this second stint, there is something not right. We might have to drag him into the interview channel at the end, and Paul can have a word and try and unravel all of this. But from great pace early on, where he was just running away with it, he is now really struggling. He's 6th on the road, that's 4th on corrected times. He's closing onto the back of Lee as they get down to the Parabolica. Can he muscle up the inside line there? Again, the cars are so evenly matched. He really needs a mistake to come out of the man ahead of him, doesn't he? Kin Long Lee, then, the Hong Kong driver, is not for cracking, though.
I can't. There was another driver, wasn't there, that also pitted and had a long stop. I can't remember who it was. Oh, he's now got the inside line. This should be an easy pass. Good overlap from De Jesus. And has that worked out? No. Strong from Long Lee to go round the outside and block the apex of the second part of the chicane. He holds on.
Your other long stopper was Andrew Lawrenson, but he then
Yes.
got a drive-through, didn't he? So he's kind of become irrelevant because of a second enforced pit stop. So, yeah, we haven't really got anything to judge what De Jesus is doing. Again, there's nobody else in a similar situation. And right now, he just can't find a way past Kin Long Lee, can he?
No, now I've got another concern for us with 7.5 minutes remaining. We usually go through the graphics on the left-hand side and the little yellow dots that are beside the names of the drivers. That is your connection and your strength of connection to the server. Now, we haven't really explained, but everything is being done remotely here. So we have a server which is not a physical server in Italy like we did for the European Series, because so many of these drivers, well, all of these drivers are based in Asia. So the TV production is being done remotely from Italy. We are remote as well in France and Britain, but all these drivers are connected to a remote server. Woo, that's not a good thing to do in front of these two cars. Oh no!
Kin Long Lee clobbers the spinning car of Nakwi Baslan, then the Lexus gets hit. That might shuffle things. It does. It now puts then Joseph De Jesus ahead. And while Ben was talking about these yellow connections, have a look at the order as well, because look, O'Hara has lost his advantage to Carl Peterson. So it's now the Mercedes ahead of the BMW by nearly 3 seconds. So when Rahmat and Hakimi serve their pit stops, it's going to be Carl Peterson that has the advantage. But now, look at Joseph De Jesus, because finally, thanks to that little incident, he's got past Kin Long Lee, and now he is charging. So he's got to make up 3.5 seconds to O'Hara, and then another 3, effectively, to Peterson with 6 minutes to go. This is a big ask.
Long Lee is now a crippled dog. He's not going to be fast along those straights with not visual damage, but it will slow him up so much. It was a huge hit. I'm surprised, actually, he's able to keep going with that such contact. And how lucky was De Jesus not to hit. 6 seconds was lost by O'Hara on that last lap. He had traffic. He was trying to get through traffic. And something has gone awry. Either he went off the circuit or he's made contact with another car. And as you say, Pedersen take advantage and now leads the race.
Not only that, but O'Hara's internet connection is looking decidedly concerning, isn't it? It's not just yellow, it's almost orange now. It's getting pretty serious. Right, look at De Jesus. He's getting away from Kin Long Lee. So he's trying to make up 3.5 seconds against O'Hara. Is he going to be able to do it as you ride on board with Terry Rayton here, 8th in the Lamborghini? Philip Baquida is his target. Into the Variante Ascari. 5 minutes and counting here, as a long way back, incidentally, number 5 Mercedes after its pit stop, Charles Fessera. So from 3rd on the grid, his race has unravelled completely, Ben, hasn't it?
Yeah, very, very strange. Again, maybe used and asked too much of those tyres in the first stint. Maybe that's the same thing for O'Hara, asking too much of his tyres. And now, by doing so, you put yourself on the edge of therefore it's the car harder to drive and easier to make mistakes. And O'Hara's last lap, 48.7. Carl Pedersen, 48.9. De Jesus, 48.1. So he's back down to the kind of pace that you would expect we have seen throughout the whole race.
But he's still 3 seconds back from O'Hara, so he's not reeling him in. There, 91 Terry Rayton is still a bit stuck, is he not, behind Philippe Baquida? So another
Hakimi
91
now pits.
He does, drops down. Yeah,
so only one more now in terms of our leading contenders to take the stop in Rahmat. We've also got Reyes down in 16th, who is now pitting, and I think that should tick all the boxes, and we will then get a representative order in the last 4 minutes of the race.
Right, so Baquida here ahead of Rayton. And Rachmat is still the leader, but he is leaving that pit stop very late indeed.
These onboard shots really just, they look so realistic. The way the car moves around on the curbs, and it just brings you so much immersion. I know a lot of these drivers will be using single screens. Some of the more experienced competitors will have 3 screens, so they can physically turn their head and look out of their side windows. It helps them with distance perception, it helps them with braking, and it helps them racing other cars as well. And there is, of course, the other option of VR, which I am a proud owner of now, and that is another level of immersion. Our last car from the pits.
Now we're getting news as to what happened to Andrew O'Hara. It was a McLaren that ran out of brakes and got into the back of other cars, which included the BMW. So O'Hara was the innocent victim. He got hit by, trying to see which McLaren it was. It's a blue McLaren, which doesn't help matters hugely, and that's why. So it was O'Hara being hit by errant traffic. That's what did for his race lead, Ben.
That is a disaster. And now contact here. Baquida getting into the side of Longley. Remember Longley with a very, very slow Mercedes now after contact. Rayton is past the party as well, and really those two should be easily past the Mercedes, knowing its top speed issues. But Longley has definitely got elbows, hasn't he? Because he has them out quite often.
That's absolutely right. Now there, as you see, the car's dropping into the chicane. Philippa Baquida drops back, so she loses a spot up the inside of Terry Rayton. Can the McLaren go back through? Yes, indeed. Baquida retakes the place. Great racecraft, that. So 3.26, then the McLaren through on the inside line. So 1 place lost, 1 place gained straight back. Going really well there.
Rachmat came out of the pits on the tail of De Jesus, so actually is 0.2 of a second of a podium, which so the strategy of leaving it very, very late seems to have worked. Has he got the pace of De Jesus? I suspect not in this late stage. De Jesus now 2.3 off O'Hara. If O'Hara had contact, his car will be hobbled, so it will be easier for De Jesus to at least get up to second position. But only 1.5 minutes remaining. He's not got many laps left. If 2, 1.
It's going to be 1 more, I think, isn't it? Just about. Depends where the leader is in relation to the clock. We haven't seen Carl Peterson go across the line. So 4.3 seconds is Peterson to O'Hara, who is falling away. But Carl Peterson's going to win this out of nowhere, isn't he? Because he was towards the bottom end of that top 6 in the first stint, and the race has just fallen into his lap with O'Hara being punted out of the way. De Jesus is closing. There is now less than a lap time left in the race, but where on the lap is Peterson relative to the clock?
25 seconds into the lap. So actually, as you started that sentence, he came across the line. So that would mean that this is the last lap?
Should be. Yeah. Clock will hit 0 on this lap then, yeah. So there is Philippa Baquida, 6th place. Terry Rayton, having been ahead, has dropped back, not only in terms of losing the place, but also losing 0.6 of a second. And Baquida might yet be able to put a move on Kin Long Lee before the very end. De Jesus is closing on O'Hara, but not by enough. So the checkered flag is going to be made ready. And we are on the last lap of the race then here at Monza, the first race in GT World Challenge Asia Esports, presented by Tarmac Works. And for Laundry House, Carl Peterson, who is an AM against the pros, is going to head home his teammate, Andrew O'Hara. It's going to be a 1-2 for Laundry House. Mercedes, which was one of the brands that we thought would go well around here, is on target for a race win. And there, look, heading now out of the Variante Ascari is indeed Carl Peterson. Now, what's going on behind? Kin Long Lee is under attack. Baquida on his tail. Behind Baquida is Rayton, so there's more shuffling to be done. But out of the parabolica is about to come Carl Peterson then. Checkered flag at the ready, and Carl Peterson is on target to win the first round of the championship. There he is, the flag at the ready, and it's a win at Monza for Mercedes. Carl Peterson wins the first race in GT World Challenge Asia Esports, presented by Tarmac Works. A great drive in a race that had so many changing fortunes, Ben.
Absolutely fantastic. Mercedes are going to be very, very heavy for our next encounter. Great to have a BMW up there in second position. Really what could have been for O'Hara, though, and what could have been for De Jesus. Some question marks for those two drivers, certainly with a strategy call from De Jesus, who won the Charity Cup before, but only third today.
Well, a really good first race. There you can see the provisional results. Some of the cars still pouring over the line. Check out the GT Esports website for the full result in due course. But a really good, lively race to get the championship underway. And watching all of that was Paul Jeffrey.
Thanks very much, Ben. Thank you very much, David. Oh, what an incredible first opening race. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we have made history. The GT World Challenge Asia Esport presented by Tarmac Works. Round one for the AM drivers is complete. Before we look any deeper into the race and the drivers that will line up for the pro race that comes next, I just want to say a massive congratulations and thank you both to Kunos Simulazione, who create the Aceto Corsa Competizione racing simulator, which I'm sure those of you that have tried it before will agree with me is an incredible piece of racing simulation software, and also to AK Informatica and the team behind the scenes that bring this championship. The reason I say we've created history today, I'm based in the UK. David Addison on comms is based in the UK as well. Ben Constanduras in France. The team that are directing this are based in Italy. And the drivers are in the Asia region. We've got Australia, Hong Kong, the Philippines. Using cloud technology, we have managed to bring together very many different elements in real time into a single package and broadcast it around the world. And for me, that is an incredible achievement that everybody needs to be rightly proud of. But enough patting ourselves on the back. We still got another race to go today, and we still got another 4 rounds in this championship. So moving on to the next race, the Pro-Am Real World drivers. Let's have a look who's going to be taking part in the event and lining up on the grid for this exciting new race. So we can see again we've got another packed field of drivers. There are names that European fans may recognise here from various different formula. We've got drivers that are prominent in the GT Asia racing scene, drivers that have had Formula 1 experience, World Touring Car experience, and more relevant to this category, experience in these GT3 specification cars. These are professional racing drivers in the real world GT World Challenge Asia Championship and professional or amateur professional drivers in the AM category of that series as well. Some of them have spent time behind the virtual wheel previously in racing simulators. Some of them are very, very new to this space. So they'll be calling upon their skills acquired in a real championship car and putting it into play in the racing simulation. The first race we saw for the sim racers produced incredible racing. David and Ben took us through that 1 hour race, and the format remains the same for the professionals. We've got 60 minutes of racing. Qualification has already taken place. There will be a mandatory pit stop once again where you've got to take on a litre of fuel at the absolute minimum in order to serve that requirement. So speed, skill, strategy, avoiding trouble, avoiding mistakes, avoiding the ever-inviting curves and gravel traps around the Monza circuit are critical elements to success. Our eSport drivers have shown the way already on how to move forward and produce a great virtual race, and I absolutely cannot wait to see how the professionals can line up on this grid and show us if the real world skills can be transferred into a virtual space. Now, as David said just at the end of the broadcast, check out the GT World Challenge website for a full listing of results from our first race and at the conclusion of this event to see how the real world Pro and Ams get on. And also check out the GT World Challenge social media for various news and stories around the series as we progress through this incredibly exciting new championship. So, without further ado, this is the GT World Challenge Asia Esports Series presented by Tarmac Works, and I'm going to hand over once again to Ben Constanduras and Mr. David Addison.
Thanks very much, Paul. Right, if you thought the first one was good, let's get set for the second race then, because this is for the real world drivers, the real entry then, and the man on pole position is in number 24, Kang Ling. Lining up with him at the front of the grid, Melvin Moe in the Mercedes. The second row of the grid is Aaron Borg with his Mercedes. Yet another Mercedes comes next, number 45 of Duvashen Pagliacci. And as the cars now make the run onto the green flag lap, Kang Ling, we've seen racing Mercedes in real world racing, came out of Formula 3, was a part of the FIA European Formula 3 Championship scene for a time, and he's going to be a man to watch. But in this race, Ben, there are lots of star names that we know from the real world, and one or two of them, like Darrell Young, for example, and Alex Young, a little bit further down the order than you might have anticipated.
Well, unfortunately, the performance in the real world doesn't necessarily reflect the performance in the simulated world. And a lot of these drivers, thankfully, will have had a lot of practice since Suzuka, but expect fireworks and chaos in this race. It really is very tricky for these real world drivers to get a hold of what it means to be a fast sim racing driver. As we spoke about a little bit before, they don't have the in the seat feel that you would do if you're in a real car. You don't necessarily get the feeling of how the car moves around underneath you. It's something that you develop just through experience with your eyes and a little bit through the steering wheel as well, because of course the steering wheel has quite a lot of force feedback. But generally, a lot of these guys will have struggled over the last couple of months to get anywhere near the pace of the sim pros that we've just seen, and we'll probably see a lap times 3 to 4 seconds slower than those guys, just simply because it is very, very, it's a bit of an art form being a fast sim driver.
It is indeed, and we've also now started to see how different brands perform around here, and there is a car all over the curb. Now, what's all that about? Trying to keep out of everybody's way. Leona Chin, that was, but an unorthodox approach to the second of the chicanes. Just about put back into something like the right order. A man who's a long way down, and I know what you're saying about the real world and the sim world. Leona Chin, I think, given up. Whoops, 66 off the road briefly there as well. That was Nan Lin. I was trying to get to Chris van der Drift, single seater star, Carrera Cup Asia star, GT racing star. But first, he will start for this race, so certainly what we expect to find.
Now, Chris has done quite a bit of sim racing, actually, but not in Aceto Corsa Coglione, and therefore he has the idea of how sim racing feels, but doesn't necessarily know how this particular platform feels. So there's another little kind of story for you. You might be a sim racer, but you only perhaps a sim racer on a certain platform. And so, yes, Chris, I would expect to see him move up through the field. Of course, we're looking at it from a fine perspective. It might have been that they just didn't get their laps in qualifying, but they will be much more consistent throughout this race. No Dan Wells on the entry list. He was one of our stars in the Charity Cup. Not quite sure whether he's just not in town at the moment. He's set up and done a lot of training with a lot of the drivers who you see today, making sure they're up to speed. Now, the drivers can't actually make contact with each other before the start of the race. You can see them slightly overlapping each other. And they will also be told to stay in a box, a virtual box, and they must stay in that until the lights go green. And they must stick to a very slow speed limit, usually about 40 kilometers an hour. So it'll keep them nicely bunched, it'll keep them in a good order. And if they're not in that box when the race goes green, instant drive-through penalty.
Alex Young starting 13th on the grid as the cars now make the run up towards the timing line. We've got a drive-through penalty offered up already for Mitchell Cheer as the race gets underway. Then the cars accelerate down towards the first chicane. Kang Ling from pole position tries to hang on to the advantage on the inside line, but is he going to come out ahead? Let's see, because the Mercedes there levels with him. Melvin Moe level. Whoops, there's contact. Elbows out between the two. There's contact. There are cars going every which way, and Kang Ling is one of the casualties. He gets fired off on the outside, so Melvin Moe goes through, but there is mayhem at the first corner.
Oh no! I mean, it's Monza. and it's likely to happen, and it's continuing past the first corner as well. There's going to be a lot of hampered and damaged cars, I think, out on circuit, certainly in the second half of the field, and some very long pit stops to get those cars fixed.
What have we been saying, though, about the importance of keeping out of trouble at the first corner? It's an hour race. You don't just win it at turn one. Well, Melvin Moe leads. He has survived, although he wasn't exactly without sin, was he? Because he got embroiled in some of the battles. A lot of people now with work to do. We've got Mitchell Cheer still with his drive-through penalty as the car's power. There went another incident there. That's just out of bad driving, surely.
Well, it was the passing car that decided to turn across. It was Alex Young, I think, that got caught up there, and there was absolutely nothing that he could do. We've got plenty of cars. Andrew Haryanto there in the Bentley, I think, seemingly going slowly, maybe damage to his car. He can't necessarily turn because he's had too much contact. A few cars will have so much contact they'll be reset straight to the pits. Others will be driving back to the pits. Yeah, Haryanto can hardly steer that thing.
Yeah. Right, so the survivors then, let's concentrate on them. Yellow flags are out in different sectors. 99 out of the Parabolica is Yetong Liang, but is he going to be able to go after Melvin Moe? Again, look, it's the Mercedes that seem to have the advantage here. Kang Ling down in roughly 9th place after bouncing off the barriers, bouncing off the opposition. So Melvin Moe leads the way, but it might well be that we end up with yet more in the way of penalties coming once the officials have had a look. It'll take a while, I suspect, to sort out all the mess. From turn one, as off the road there, look, goes the Mercedes. That was Melvin Moe getting it all wrong. Accelerates out the other side. Jieting Ling also off the road. So the two Motul liveried cars then off the road and back on again. And through all of this, number 45, Dervishen Pariachi, looking to try and split them. Well, he's got past one. Can he get now? Up past Jietong Liang. Let's see. He's on the outside of the second chicane. Not quite able to do it there.
Well, chaos, and hopefully the drivers can now start to settle down into some kind of a rhythm. When we had our first race in Monza in the European series, we implemented a thing called ghost car on the first lap. It allowed all the drivers, basically prevented them from making contact with each other, and so you could drive through each other. Obviously that was not implemented here, and that is the... There was lots of people who complained about the ghost mode, but I think it's a good idea because, as you've seen, it's very, very difficult for our real-world drivers to get through that first chicane without harm. And I don't know how many have got harm, but there's plenty that are in the pits. And about 5 that retired, and about 5 or 6 that are in the pits right now getting repaired, and plenty others, I think, that are struggling.
Okay. Another one that I don't think took the start of the race, Aaron Lim. He was supposed to have been 22nd on the grid and then disappeared from the grid graphic halfway around the formation lap. So maybe that was a server problem that took him out of it. But number 99 then goes through. Jieting Ling leads the way. Jietong Liang then in the lead of the race. Forgive me. Dervishen Pariachi in second place, closing right up there under braking for the first chicane. And if you get your line wrong, it compromises the first part and the second part, but it also compromises those around you if there is contact to be made. Pariachi looking the stronger here for Tarmac Motorsports.
Yeah, absolutely. All over the back of the Motul sponsor Mercedes. Goes to that side, which is the inside through Curva Grande, but it's the outside for the second chicane, and always tricky to do the outside through here. Charles Leclerc or Sebastian Vettel do that a couple of weeks ago in Formula 1. I can't remember. But it's very, very hard to do. You have to be so forceful, and actually it's compromised Pariachi and put him into the clutches of Melvin Moe.
It has, and then fourth is Adderley Fong, who has developed into quite a good real-world GT racer. In 5th place now, number 50, Hideto Yasuoka in the Ferrari. And 6th now is Aaron Borg with yet another of the Mercedes. The Sydney-sider, the Australian driver, running in 6th place. Drive-through for the man in 7th place, though. Look, and that, in number 98, is Freddie Ang with the Honda.
Yeah, so nice to have a Honda so far up, but unfortunately... drive-through penalty, haven't seen anything from a steward, so presumably that is a track limits infringement.
It's looking that way, isn't it, as the leaders blast out of the Parabolica then. So 54 minutes are on the clock. There's a car that's in the gravel there at the end of the straight, isn't there? Yellow flags were being shown, so somebody has had a drama and gone straight on. Kang Ling just going through the shot then. He's in 8th place, ahead of Sean Tong. But what can Kang Ling, who topped qualifying, do now to get himself back into the mix? He's closing on the Honda. There it is, look. So Freddie Ang goes through the Parabolica. Kang Ling comes up. He'll gain a place now because I think the Honda is going to serve its drive through. No, it was just a strange line out of the Parabolica. So Ang stays out there. But Ling looks like he's got the pace in a straight line, and he should have, Ben, given that he qualified quicker than anyone.
Yes. Now, we don't really know how many of these cars are still carrying damage from our issues at the start of the race. Oh, there's a very, very slow Mercedes on the racing line there, catching out the Lamborghini, and Freddie goes grass tracking, and that's going to allow Ling past as well.
Right, now there is number 2 BMW, Aaron Lim, who has got himself into the race now. And in fact, he's in the top 10, so quite where he'd gone on the grid graphic, past, but he's in the race. Kevin Say is behind him in number 38 Mercedes. The BMW, we've seen that car, that type of car, show well in the earlier Sim World race. Now in the real world race, Aaron Lim, the Malaysian for Tedco Racing, keeping Kevin Say at bay behind him.
Craft Bamboo, really great supporter, both in the Sim World and in the real world of this championship. I think one of our partners, in fact, and certainly a huge support in the Charity Cup race that we were raising money for a couple of weeks back. And fantastic to see not only the drivers participating, but the engineers from that team as well, working alongside the drivers to get these cars set up. Of course, very important to make sure you've got a compliant setup of the car as well as a fast setup. And perhaps the drivers are the ones that are able to do this. Battle for the lead.
So, Liang versus Pagliacci, who's got the better run off the Parabolica. Up past the pits they will come. This is Division Pagliacci's view then. So past the pits they go. He's on the inside line for the first part of the first chicane. It was 7,000ths between the two of them as they broke the timing beam into the first chicane they go. Who is the last of the late breakers? It is Pagliacci who gets the inside line and takes over the race lead. And it was a move that started going really into the Parabolica, wasn't it?
Yeah, nice move. Now, can he break away? You get the feeling that Pagliacci has the pace to be able to do so, and was perhaps slightly compromised by the other two Mercedes around him over those last couple of laps. Melvin Moe dropping off the tail of these two. So that's the man who was on our pole, the fastest in qualifying, but so far in the race is unable to keep up with our leading two. Pagliacci in 48.8 the last lap through, in comparison to Yaitong Lang's 49.2 and Melvin Moe's 49.4. Aaron Borg down in 6th position on a 49.2 as well. So watch his progress through this first into the race. There are some pit stoppers at the bottom end of the field, as we think saw somebody in the middle of the pack there having a spin. Here's Matthew Marsh, one time quite a performant Porsche driver, but recently more known for his TV exploits on, I think it's Fox Asia, where he is one of the F1 experts.
Yeah, journalist racer, isn't he, with some success, it must be said. So Matthew Marsh at the moment in the thick of the battles. Now, Ang, stop, go 30, it says. What's all that about? 21st place he runs, Ben.
Because he's had a drive-through penalty already, you can't get a second one. So the next kind of stage up in terms of penalties from track limits again is a stop-go penalty. So he's got to stop for 30 seconds, and that will have been for a very large track infringement. Basically, keeping your foot in whilst you skip across the first chicane.
Right, this is Aaron Borg's view, and there's about to be contact if he's not careful. Number 50 right there ahead of him is Yasuoka's Ferrari that gets elbowed out wide a little bit. The number 4 Mercedes then tries to get the run up the inside. The SRT Team Sydney entry does go round the outside. The Ferrari's going to slip back here. Hideto Yasuoka, and look who is behind them. Poleman Kang Ling is closing up all the time here.
Yeah, and sometimes it's very hard for these drivers to know exactly where cars are around them visually. They do have some aids to help them in terms of like a radar that shows exactly where cars are around you. But because of the fact that effectively all these drivers are individually sitting in different rooms around Asia, sending their data to a server on a cloud in Asia, which is sending that data back to all of the other drivers to be able to see where they are in a split second. sometimes it's predicting where the driver is rather than actually knowing. And so in those situations around the chicane, sometimes it's quite hard to know exactly where your competitor is, and that's where you get those little biffs and contacts.
Right, now there is Ling making up ground. So Kang Ling goes through. He's ahead of Aaron Borg now. And a spin in the background, bouncing off the wall. That is the Ferrari, is it not? That is Yasuoka, Hideto Yasuoka. The privateer has been the Ferrari, I'm afraid to say. But Kang Ling is working his way forward. Now, we've also got to factor into all of this, of course, pit stops.
Yes. Not many have been made yet. As with the sim world, the real race, you don't have to take anything except 1 litre of fuel, so you don't have to change your tyres. You can if you want to, but it's a longer stop, and we did see that didn't quite work out in the sim world for De Jesus, who dropped from first down to third, having taken tyres. But in this one, they're using a lot more of their tyres as Kevin C comes into the pits from the outskirts, the top 10. I think more will be needing to change their tyres because they'll be asking so much of them during the stints.
So Ang has still got his stop-go to serve. 81 going through. Philip Tang in the Buddha Racing Lamborghini Huracan. And 24 Kang Ling is going after Adderley Fong now. 1.3 seconds was the margin. We've got, of course, a few cars delayed from the early strife. Whoops, that was Ling getting into the back of the traffic. That's delayed, and there's another car off into the gravel. It's a messy race, this, Ben, isn't it, considering these are the pros?
Yes, but they are the pro drivers, but they're not pros at sim racing, and they are still finding their feet. If you cast your mind back to the start of the European Series, it was a very, very similar thing with little mistakes creeping in. But by the end of the 5-round series, all of those real-world drivers have become proper sim experts, and we saw some fantastic action. So we forgive the little mistakes at the early part of this championship, and I look forward to seeing changes and progression as we move through the rest of the year.
Well, indeed so. But right now, Division Pagliacci, despite his internet connection not looking great, is the race leader from, in second place, Jietong Liang, and then third is Melvin Mo, who led early on. This is fourth place Kang Ling, who, with dramas going on ahead, and to an extent, some of them he has just triggered because he was a bit robust in his driving. He's fourth ahead of Aaron Borg and then Sean Tong. And Ling is somebody with 46 minutes to go. We shouldn't rule out of this. Number 99 in second place, Jietong Liang, having lost that race lead, has lost quite a bit of time in the traffic, hasn't he now?
Yeah, absolutely. Look at Borg, one of our fastest men in the early part of the running. He's already gone into the pits, so keeping an eye on how long that takes for one of our leading contenders to make a stop early doors, and kind of shuffles him out of the same bit of track as many others. Adley Fong was the spinner last time. He lost 10 seconds, so dropped from, I think, 5th down to 7th at that point. Now back up to 6th thanks to Borg's pit stop. And he should be, if Borg has not taken tyres, coming out of the pits any moment. But he stays in, so it's a long stop for Borg.
It is, isn't it? And also, you've got 999 of Billy Lowe with the Audi Sport Asia TSRT entry, the Macanese driver. Right, now there is the hard-charging Jietong Liang, but he's lost 2 seconds, having already lost the lead to Division Pagliacci. So as he comes out of the Variante Ascari now, he's lost yet more time. The wayward Porsche, a lap down, running out of road and back on again. 30 still Melvin Moan. There's more strife here, look, coming through the Lesmo curves. The Ferrari gets more or less back onto the road, but losing a place. That was, I think, Rick Yoon in the Hidden Cliff entry. Yes, he was 9th, and he's not anymore. Matthew Marsh gets up and past him.
A remarkably long stop for Aaron Borg, still in pit lane after 1 minute and 23 seconds. Now, you ask why. It is probably because he's picked up damage from our first lap incidents, and he's chosen, by ticking a box, to have that damage fixed. Now out of the pits after 1.5 minutes, he'll at least have a fresh car. He might have fresh tyres as well, but he's certainly lost a huge amount of time.
He was running in that top 6 early on, wasn't he? So didn't look that hobbled to begin with. He may have had more damage that we didn't see. However, in the meantime, Division Pagliacci is escaping up the road then. So 2.3 seconds is the lead that Pagliacci has got over Liang, then Mo, and Kang Ling in 4th place. Now, Ben, can you go into the game and have a look at Ling's lap times, because I'm mindful that he's had a first lap skirmish. He had one a couple of laps back, but yet he is still making good progress as there. Rick Yoon dives up the inside of Matthew Marsh, clatters his way through, tries to get the place. Also in that mix is Chris van der Drift in the Porsche. So van der Drift trying to get up through the pack as well, although he's not shown, is he, as being in that group on the lead lap.
No, I think he might be 2 or even 3 laps down. No, 4 laps down after contact. So he's down in 34th position, having only completed 4 laps. So he did have a big repair to do when he went into the pit.
But the Ling lap times are intriguing. Does Kang Ling, allowing for damage, have the pace to be able to go after those 3 Mercedes? No, he doesn't, because he's got a drive-through penalty all of a sudden.
Oh! Didn't see it on screen, but it would be a track limits penalty, gaining an advantage by being 4 wheels off the track. His pace is good, 49.0, plays Paddyacci's 48.6. Paddyacci, the only man in the 48s. But Liang and Mo are struggling, that's for sure.
Yeah, they are, because they were, as you say, looking good early on. Matthew Marsh in the Porsche through, but Paddyacci building that gap over the opposition. So Matthew Marsh, having lost out to Rick Yoon, wants the place back. So 9th and 10th, Ferrari versus Porsche. Proper GT battle, that, isn't it? Ferrari versus Porsche, 2 of the longest serving names within international sports car racing. And a battles as well, this sort of machine. Matthew Marsh comes off the parabolica, now then up towards the timing line.
So the 24 Ling drive-through penalty is not track limits, because our race director, Daniel Montero, has just said contact with 26, number 26, which I think we saw, and therefore that is why he's got a drive-through.
Okay, so it is for a proper incident rather than the game. And there is Matthew Marsh getting it all wrong under braking for the first chicane. Right onto his tail then comes Chris van der Drift. Up now to the Curva Grande they go, speed building. So Kang Ling, after all the promise shown in qualifying, is about to drop way down the order. He did do some of the GT World Challenge Europe esports races, didn't he? But in a Mercedes.
Yes, good memory. I'd forgotten that. Looks like Chris van der Drift now out on circuit has good pace, being able to keep up with Marsh and putting him under a bit of pressure. Just a shame that he was caught up in such a presumably large incident on that first lap. Plenty of cars, a good lap or 2 down already. We were only 20 minutes into the race.
I mean, it did take out seemingly half the field, didn't it? And you could tell that people had long pit stops, because it wasn't long before the lappery came into effect in all of this. So van der Drift is in 34th place. Alex Young, another one that's way down. Daryl Young, another one, 30th. Harrianto, 29th. So many of the drivers you might anticipate to be up at the pointy end really are in trouble. So this is Marsh defending against van der Drift, but in a sense, because they're so many laps apart, he could just let him go, couldn't he? Concentrate on his own race here.
Yeah, and actually, if Chris van der Drift is faster, I would be looking at... He'll know that he's not racing for position. He'll see that on the graphic. So if Chris is faster, I'd be looking to let him pass and then learn and follow. He's a Porsche, so we know it's the same car, and Matthew could actually work out a little bit about where he's losing out. It does look like he's losing out at the end of straights, so top speed, and that will simply be down to damage.
Meantime, battle is on here between 99 and Jietong Liang, and who is that behind him on the road? It's the delayed number 4 of Aaron Borg, isn't it? So not only was it a long pit stop, it's lost him a lap relative to the opposition. So Ben was right in saying it was a long stop in terms of sheer numbers, but the damage of losing a lap really does put you out of the race, doesn't it?
Interesting to see again whether he can get past Liang and sort of go up the road. Lights flashing from Melvin Moe. Pretty sure that doesn't do anything in sim racing. It does in the real world, because you get kind of a reflection in your mirrors and you see it. But in the sim world, I don't really think it has any kind of effect whatsoever. It's more comforting from the driver doing the pressurizing just to make him feel better than anything else. But yeah, look, I think Ball can get past this and disappear up the road. Now he's got a clean car.
Let's see then, as the cars work their way down into the parabolica once more. Borg is certainly on his toes, isn't he? He's looking competitive, but having said all of that, Jietong Liang, 2nd place in the race, can't afford to get involved in any battles here, and he doesn't want traffic really ahead of him that might get in the way. So it's in his interests to keep the lapped car behind him. But look, Paddyacci, 7.5 4 seconds clear. So he's caught those leading Motul liveried Mercedes, passed them, and pulled away by over 7 seconds. And of course, now if Liang is defending from the lap Borg, that's only going to add to the gap growing between the leaders.
Yeah, 1.5 seconds on the last lap. Looking down the timing screens, there is nobody within a second of Paddyacci's last lap time, which is a 48.3. So remember I said we would expect a gap of 3 or 4 seconds between the sim and the real world? Well, actually, it's only about a second for Paddyacci. He's right on the pace that we saw from our real world guys.
Sean Tong going through in the Audi, and he's getting himself onto the back now of Tenju Izanlei with a Tedco BMW that goes way out wide. So Sean Tong should be able to try to gain ground out of all of this. Sean Tong, the Hong Kong driver, up into 4th place now. So the Audi may not necessarily be one of the favoured cars, but Sean is on the Audi roster in real-world racing in Asia. We've seen him occasionally in Europe. And here he is now making progress in a rather twitchy, as Ben called it, edgy-looking car.
It does, doesn't it? I think maybe that is why people prefer to steer away from it, because it's a bit of a challenge. And the BMW got really deep on the brakes there, nearly contact between him and the Audi. And that's now put the BMW into the clutches of a recovering Adley Fong, who's got his head down now and looking to get back into the top 5.
Yeah, Fong in the Lamborghini, so closing as their look. Liang is still keeping Borg at bay. So this is 2nd versus 20th. And Aaron Borg does look the quicker of the two, but Liang just continues here to, if you like, get in the way as he defends. But the lead gap has come down, hasn't it? From over 7 seconds to 6.7. Is this maybe Borg spurring him on? Aaron Borg comes up to have a go on the outside line, going down towards the chicane. This could end in tears, couldn't it? There's also the fact that there's traffic up the road too, but Liang maintains track position. These two do need to be careful.
And Liang doesn't need to be battling. He just, if he's feeling too much pressure, let him go. He's not losing any time by doing so, and Borg can then stretch his legs and get out of the way. But right now, I think you could easily make a mistake having the pressure.
Now, this is Kang Ling about to get back past Matthew Marsh after his drive-through. Kang Ling goes through up on the inside line, picks up the place, job done. So it's a real snakes and ladders race, because as he gains a place, he goes off the road and is in danger of losing it once again. So late on the brakes, Kang Ling, well, he does survive the experience, but it's just a messy race from him, isn't it?
Yeah, and he really had to get on the anchors there, because if he'd skipped across that chicane too fast, he would have picked up another penalty straight away. It's an automatic thing. The game calculates the advantage you've gained by being off the track and then instantly throws you a penalty. So actually, it's a bit of a weird one that if you are off track, you sometimes have to brake, knowing that you're taking such a chunk of track away from the time that is being calculated. Something like that is a lot easier. The game will say, you've got a warning, you've been marginally faster, you're a couple of hundredths faster, that's fine. And I like the system in Aceto Corsa Competizione. It's way more forgiving and it's way more real than you have in other sim platforms where as soon as you go 4 wheels off, ping, penalty, punishment. Here, at least, there's a bit of flexibility unless you do it too naughtily.
I think ping, penalty and punishment is a good name for a firm of solicitors, isn't it? Kang Ling out of the Variante Ascari. He's still pressing on then, still trying to make up the lost ground. Rick Yoon is the next target in the Ferrari, 1.9 seconds further up the road. But look at the gap between the race leaders. Paddyacci is toying with them, isn't he? He's now stretched it again to over 8 seconds. It's a mighty performance, this, from Paddyacci.
One of the really key things about being a motor racing driver is consistency, and there is no consistency at all at the front of our field. Paddyacci did a 48.3, then he did a 50.3, he's now done a 49.3, whereas Liang has been in the 49s and now he's in the 50s, and Melvin Moe's in the 51s. So it's all a bit of a mess at the front of the field, and that's why we're seeing such changes in the gaps between them over the last couple of laps.
Well, Kang Ling has got traffic, but he's also now very close indeed to Rick Yoon. That is Adley Fong recovering, one-time British Formula 3 racer, but as I said early on, he's made quite a nice niche for himself in GT racing in Asia, and he's closing on Sean Tong. That is Ling. He's got two back markers that get themselves together, and he gets involved as well. So he was going after that Ferrari. He's still going after that Ferrari of Rick Yoon, but again, the real world drivers are blotting their copybooks here, aren't they? With yet more contact into the chicane, and Ling lucky to survive that.
One of the really tricky things about sim racing, because you don't necessarily have the ability, depending on the setups, the hardware that these guys have at home, you can't turn your head and see the car beside you. If you have a single screen, you can only see in front of you. And so sometimes the side-to-side action is quite hard. There is a radar system in Aceto Corsa Competizione that I've spoken about before that kind of shows you exactly where cars are around you. But you can also have that turned off if you want. But ultimately, it is one of the big differences. In the real world, you'll hear the car beside you. You'll be able to turn your head. You'll have a great awareness, and you'll have a fear as well, a little bit of a fear. Whereas in the sim world, you don't have any of that. Oh, Liang last time through lost 6 seconds, so he's had a very slow lap.
Well, Kang Ling is still chasing on, isn't he, in the Lamborghini. 8th place now, having got himself up past Rick Yoon. The next target is number 2 of Aaron Lim, as there is 99 Jiatong Liang. So he's down in 3rd place, having lost that time. He's lost a place as well, and we're approaching the halfway mark. Now, the best of those that have made a pit stop, Ben, where do we look for? Antares Au down in 15th place.
A very early pit stopper. Presumably forced into it by damage. We certainly know that Borg was as well, and Borg made a hugely long pit stop and it's still second of those that stopped. So presumably Antares Au was in the same boat. We haven't therefore really seen anybody make a fast 30-second pit stop like we would expect to see from a non-damaged or non-hobble car. Now, your car could be damaged, and if you're happy with the pace of it, you can choose not to repair it. You can leave the damage on the car and therefore not take the penalty of the stop. You'll have the data to know how long the stop will be if you decide to repair the car, so you can make an educated decision.
Battles are going on in midfield as well, plus you've got the traffic trying to surge its way through. Number 77 Mercedes, that's Frank Yu, who we've seen in the past in GT4 within what was Blancpain GT Series Asia. Now it will be, of course, the GT World Challenge Asia powered by AWS. Over the timing line they go. This is Kang Ling through on the inside of the BMW, so he's just put himself up into 7th place as over the timing line goes Adderley Fong. So the order shuffling all the time. We've got pit stops to factor into this as well. We're approaching the halfway point, and hard on the brakes there in 19th place. Look, number 65, Douglas Coe, who's switched from Porsche, which he'd entered, into the Mercedes for the purposes of the race.
Rick Yoon to the pits. So that's one of our leading contenders out of, I think, 10th position when he went into the stop. Let's see how long it takes for him to stop, although his last lap was slowed, so maybe he will have damage too.
Okay, so there, look, is Douglas Coe. He's dropping back in the pack now, losing places. Rick Yoon, as I say, is losing position, and Ben has mentioned the fact that he served a stop too. So as we edge towards the halfway point of the race, let's see who else is on a mission. Darrell O'Young still way back, 28th after being delayed in all the dramas off the start. And for the Viper Nizer team, way out wide goes Douglas Coe, loses a place in the process. Further up the road, number 68, Evan Chen, who was one of the stars of the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Asia. Indeed, he was also a winner in class of the World Finals a couple of years ago. So Evan Chen is a handy peddler, came out of Carrera Cup Asia as well. Number 4 over the timing line, that is Aaron Borg. Well, we've been talking about him being a lap down, but now he's gaining places back, isn't he? He's starting to edge his way through the field as others serve their pit stops.
Yeah, and Rick Yoon still in the pits, a minute and 20 in. So he's also elected to serve the stop and repair. 3 wide into the parabolica. Matthew Mars is going to be assaulted.
Gets well and truly roughed up. Yui Tan there, keeping out of trouble in Porsche number 5. But the BMW being overly aggressive, I think, in all of that. Yui Tan was delayed early on. He's down in 34th place. So there he is in that battle pack as they come across the line. But Aaron Lim in the BMW, a bit robust in that fight with Matthew Marsh.
Yeah, I mean, late on the brakes, he probably wouldn't have made the corner unless he bounced off somebody. And unfortunately, Matthew's going to be with yet more damage. And this time he goes deep tan into turn one. The Bentley gets compromised. They all kind of squabble over grip at the exit as well. It's chaotic in the mid pack. And actually, that BMW, the Bentley seems to have dropped about 4 places there.
Yeah. Yui Tan, a very handy Porsche racer. He's raced in Europe in Porsche Super Cup on occasions, raced in Carrera Cup Asia. I'm surprised he gets categorised as an AM for the purposes of this, because he's a very handy Porsche racer. His wife, TV presenter Claire Jedrick, also a racer. And there Kang Ling goes through. Now Ling is 7th. Fong, the next target, 8.5 seconds up the road.
Change for second position. Melvin Moe made a big error last time, dropped 6 seconds, and so Yang back up into second position. And actually, Melvin is on a slow lap again, so could be really hobbled now. He's lost 3 seconds in this lap also.
Okay, thank you for that. Look at the lead gap then. Padiachi 16 seconds clear over Liang and Mo. You get the feeling neither of them really want to be second. As one gains the place, they make an error, don't they? All of which might just give us cause to look at 213. Tenku Ejen Lei in 4th position. The BMW might just benefit from any dramas ahead. Sean Tong is 5th. Adderley Fong 6th. Kang Ling 7th. Matthew Marsh is 8th. Aaron Lim is 9th, and then Hideto Yasuoka rounds out the top 10. So there is the second place car. Jiatong Liang then, who is in a distant second position relative to Dervish and Padiachi. 17 seconds, that leading margin now.
And Borg ahead of Al. So our virtual pits, those that have pitted, the leader is now Borg, having pitted for a minute and 15 seconds. So that is still an interesting benchmark. 11th position, top 10 yet to pit, although we've got Ling and Yasuoka in the pits right now. So let's keep a look at Kang Ling and see how long his stop is.
There is Tenku Lei coming out of the first of the Lesmo curves. So that's the car running in 4th place. And the opposition is Sean Tong's Audi, which, as you see, is not yet in shot. There it is now at the back. So there's quite a gap between 4th and 5th, which is just under 5 seconds as the BMW booms down to the Variante Ascari once more. So 27 minutes of this race remains. And Dervish and Padiachi
in the pits.
Go on, man. In the pits now. So the race leader is in after 18 laps. So that's just over halfway through, isn't it? Now, is this going to be a long stop or is it going to be a quick one? Is he going to do anything clever with tyres?
Well, Kang Ling was about 1 minute and 10 stationary. So that might just simply be a pit stop with tyres. It might not necessarily be damage. Certainly Liang has damage. Padiachi, I don't think we've seen him in contact, perhaps a little touch at the start, but ultimately that is him, I think, off his jacks and heading back out onto circuit. So his pit stop is going to be significantly shorter than those that we've seen so far. Just waiting for him to cross the pit out line. A little bit of time. It's still, there we go, 48 seconds. So that is, for me, a pit stop with tyres.
Okay, well, certainly Kang Ling had damage. You've just seen a Mercedes there make a real mess of the chicane, and it is the second of these cars that effectively went straight on up the escape road, having got onto the grass under braking. So Melvin Moe now leads the way. Padiachi then has pitted, but it was a long-ish stop, perhaps going on to tyres. There's 77 turns through. That's Frank Yu for Craft Bamboo Racing. Some great liveries on these cars, aren't there?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. They've done some really good work, the livery designers, both real world and sim, in either replicating what they have in the real world or just making up some really cool stuff. And it's really cool to see. So Liang out of the pit after 50 seconds. So he took tyres, but presumably didn't repair damage, interestingly.
Okay. What was Padiachi's stop again?
48.
Right.
So that was a simple one. And Liang is with Ling and Borg. And that, therefore, is going to be quite a tasty battle, knowing how fast Borg was. Borg's actually the fastest man on the circuit right now, of 49.0 last time through.
The Ferrari number 50, Hideto Yasuoka, drive-through penalty, an unsafe rejoin, resulting in taking out number 26, Felipe de Souza. So the Ferrari that was on the fringes of the top 10 is now going to be given a drive through as you look at Frank Yu down in 27th spot.
Felipe de Sousa has been subject to 2 of those drive-through penalty decisions because he was the reason we saw Ling with a penalty earlier on. So poor old de Sousa, he's way down the field and he's seemingly being abused.
So Frank Yu comes out of the Parabolica. He served his pit stop, hasn't he? You see the little green column indicator on the totem pole, so that says that he served the stop. Division Pagliacci there is in 5th place on the road, but is the best of the stoppers, so it's still very much advantage to the number 45 Mercedes. Pagliacci, who is an Australian driver, he did race for a time in British Formula 3, if you have a very long memory. He drove for Double R Racing, but has done the bulk of his racing since in Australian Carrera Cup or in the Bathurst 12 Hours, so he's an experienced driver, is Pagliacci.
Some of the numbers are representative of what he's chosen on the dashboard. So you can see ABS 2 and traction control setting 3, so pretty low, but not totally off. Map 1 is its fuel maps, and then some of the other things on there that aren't representative because we like to keep the data away from prying eyes, so the amount of fuel he's got and lap time and stuff like that. And some of the other data, he can actually filter through those different screens, and he'll be able to also see his tyre pressures and understand exactly how the tyres are holding up as well.
So he comes out of the Variante Ascari, and not only did he pit at the right time, but he's rejoined in the right place, hasn't he? Because look, there's not another car around him. Look in the mirror, nobody. Look out the windscreen, nobody. In other words, he's not being impeded at all. He can now effectively do some qualifying laps here, and he's absolutely storming. 4th on the grid, Pagliacci 5th on the road, but well clear of anybody else that's made a pit stop.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be interesting to see what this time is. There's the race logic timing clock on the right-hand side, 49.7, breaks the beam. There are faster out there right now. Kang Ling, the 48.5, down in 9th position, so he's got a faster car. He's being hassled, by the way, by Aaron Borg. There was 2 seconds between them, and there's now 2.8 seconds between them, both of which are behind Matthew Marsh. So Marsh, having done his pit stop, obviously that pit stop wasn't a hugely long one, and he's really in the mix of things in the second half of this race.
Okay, now he's Borg back on the lead lap. I think he is, isn't he? He's way out wide. There goes Matthew Marsh, so that's going to cost him dear relative to Kang Ling. This is for 8th. Look, Ling goes to the inside line down to the Parabolica. Can the Lamborghini outbrake the Porsche? It's going to be close, but he should have the line off the right-hander. Kang Ling does go through up into 8th place. Good stuff, that.
Yeah, and you would expect him to be faster. He's only really down there dint of his drive-through penalty, so he's despite having a drive-through penalty, still in the top 10 and actually probably in the top 5 once all the pit stops filter through. So great pace from Ling. If he hadn't had that contact with de Sousa earlier on, he would be right in the thick of things.
So down now towards the chicane comes the team yellow flag, Écurie Drapeau Jaune Porsche of Matthew Marsh.
Oh, and Tenku Lei losing 10 seconds on this lap. So he's made an error from 3rd position. And because he was making up good ground on Melvin Moe. He looked pretty consistent, but an error from the BMW in 3rd. And he's dropped 11 seconds. It's not representative yet until our timing screen goes through the next split. And in fact, he dives to the pits.
Okay, so there, Kang Ling almost gets assaulted by an errant Mercedes, which has gone where? Somewhere to Rome, I think. It's way out of shot, way out of line. So Kang Ling, leading a charmed life, gets away with that, but not quite sure what the Mercedes was up to, but it wasn't for slowing down, was it?
I wonder whether he'd seen that coming in the mirrors, because he was very lucky to have the front end contact. If that had been side to side, he would have been properly wiped out. He will have a bit of damage from that contact, but ultimately it could have been a whole lot worse.
Brings Matthew Marsh back into the mix as well. Now, these two are chasing after, and they're almost up with Jiatong Liang, aren't they? So look, that gap is coming down between them all the while as they hustle on. So Kang Ling in the Lamborghini accelerates down towards the Variante Ascari. Right now, though, with the pit stop cycling through 33 Porsche of Antares Au. That was an early stopper. That's in 13th position. See, it's the car you're looking at on the graphic. 4th is where you find Division Padiachi. And Padiachi's effectively the race leader. I know he's 4th on the road, but he's the best of those that have stopped. So when Mo, Tong and Fong all serve their mandatory stops, he'll get the race lead back. And he's getting away from Liang, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And just behind Liang now on the road, I think, is Tenku Lei, who came out of pits after 1 minute and 8 seconds. So a slightly long repair for the BMW and kind of falling into that little battle that we were watching just before.
So through the traffic goes Padiachi, gets himself up on the inside there. That's putting a lap on another car rather than gaining position because he is the race leader. Internet connection still not great for the Australian, is it? Look at how yellow it is on that little icon. But he comes up over the timing line. Another lap in the book, 22 of them done now. It's hard to see anybody stopping him, Ben, at the moment, isn't it? Because he's looked mighty strong and even the nearest opposition is a long way back. And they've got their own dramas. Liang is inconsistent. Kang Ling has had a few dramas. Aaron Borg lost a lot of time in the pit. So Padiachi looking invincible.
I think the one concern would be to keep out of trouble. There are so many inexperienced drivers out there. There is real possibility of being wiped out by another driver. So he just try and keep his powder dry. And he will know the gap that he's got to the nearest rival. He will have all of that information on his head-up display, so he doesn't now need to go for lap time, and I would just be making sure my nose is clean.
Okay, so yeah, keep out of trouble, get it to the end. 33 Antares Au there, comes down towards the Variante Ascari in the Porsche. That's from the Modena Motorsports car.
Yeah, I think just ahead of him was Melvin Moe passing him for a lappery, and the car looks horrible. He has a lot of damage on that car, and if he repairs it, he will be well out of contention. He's still doing 51 sevenths, but you can see the bonnet flapping around. So, as I say, there's a lot of contact you can have in a Aceto Corsa Competizione that isn't graphically replicated, and if you have graphically replicated damage, then you're in deep doo-doo. That's a really, really bad damage, and a 54.6 last time. I don't think Melvin is going to be in our top 3 after the pit stops when it all shakes out. And remember, he was leading at the start of the race.
He was indeed. There is Kang Ling getting himself through the traffic, putting a lap on Frank Yu, who is in 26th place now. So Frank Yu, who made a name for himself initially for Craft Bamboo in a GT4 spec Cayman, comes now through the Lesmo curves. So Melvin Moe as the race leader on the road, but of course has to serve his mandatory stop. 16 3/4 minutes to go, and he comes into the chicane with this battered Mercedes. Accelerates out of the chicane, up through the gears. Sean Tong second, 8 seconds back. Adley Fong third, and Padiachi is 4th. Now a pit stop, a good stop. Padiachi's was a good stop, 48 seconds. So easily he will get the lead back, won't he?
Yeah. I don't think there's anybody that's got a car that's got pace to really match him. You're seeing lap times all over the place. Ling is fast. Ling would be the number 24, Kang Ling in the Lamborghini. He would be one of the favourites, I think, had he not got that drive-through penalty. 48.5 was his last time through. So, that's a good couple of seconds faster. We're not talking tenths in this race. We are talking seconds difference between lap time.
Yeah, I mean, Ling should be up there, but he had a drama early on. Didn't he get a drive-through penalty? So he had a drive-through, but for that, he would have been okay. So Kang Ling qualified on pole position. He also got wiped out to an extent within the first corner fracas because he was forced all over the dirt on the outside. So, yeah, Ling has a bit of a hard luck story in all of this, but he's not given up. He's still pushing, and he should gain places before the end.
Yang, before the pit stops, was virtually second. Melvin Moe third, and Ling chasing down Liang now, and presumably with enough pace to easily make that pass stick. It's about 7 seconds of the gap right now, but he is lapping a good couple of seconds faster. So if Ling finds himself with Liang, and Melvin Moe really is hobbled like we think he is, he could still be on the podium here, and that would be quite an achievement.
Absolutely, I go along with that. Would be an impressive recovery, wouldn't it? There is Kang Ling, who, when he's keeping out of trouble, is quick, no question about it. Comes now out of the Variante Ascari, sprints along the back straight down to the Parabolica. So he's 7th on the road, but in real terms, that's 3rd. Where is he in relation to Jiatong Liang? We need to get him across the timing line, don't we?
The gap, actually, I said it was 7 seconds, but it's not. It's way larger than that. I think it's up to about 25. The timing screens that I use inside the game aren't wholly easy to understand because they're always moving around, but now we'll get a proper indication. 28.2, yeah. It's taken a second out and that last quarter of a lap, though.
So Ling through, 14 minutes to go. Yeah, as you say, he's going in the right direction here. He is bringing down that deficit. 22 ahead is, or 22nd place is number 76. That's Leona Chin, who we saw in strife early on. And another car in the wars there is Philip Tang's Lamborghini. They dart either side of him. So it's a bit touch and go, but thankfully they get past Philip Tang. And Kang Ling having to dodge drama, get through traffic, pushing on as best he can after Jiatong Liang. Now, what about the Aaron Lim BMW? That's running in 5th. Aaron Borg's delayed Mercedes of earlier on in 8th place, having dropped back behind Ling now. So
yeah, he's just there
other than
in the white
Mercedes.
Mercedes.
Sorry again?
He's just there in the white Mercedes, right on the tail of Ling. So these are probably our 2 fastest cars on track right now. And actually, Borg could be suddenly taking Ling's attention away from doing lap times and chasing down Liang, and actually we might have a little battle there for what potentially would be the final podium spot, depending on what happens with Melvin Moe once he does his pit stop.
Well, there is Melvin Moe, race leader. He is being caught anyway by Sean Tong, so their battle is going to carry on after the pit stops. You can see the blue Audi in the background is getting a little bit nearer as through the Lesmo curves goes Melvin Moe. He's back onto the power now as he accelerates along the short straight down to the Variante Ascari once more. For Craft Bamboo Racing, Melvin Moe leads the pack, but to the eye, Sean Tong is getting closer and closer.
Yeah, seconds a lap. Melvin's doing 51s at the moment, and not probably down to his pace, more down to the fact that he's trying to drive a car that really needs to be in the pits and repaired. But with 12 minutes remaining, and having not repaired it thus far, it would be very unwise for him to go into the pits and then repair it. Oh, contact between Borg and Ling.
So they were fighting for 7th on the road and off the road. They get back on, being closed in on by the traffic. Just going back to Melvin Moe, it does make you wonder. I think you touched on it, Ben, really. If the car does need repairing, why not do it? Why stay out? So I think he's going to try and brave this out to the very end. Borg comes up to have a go at Ling once more, but Kang Ling staves him off going into the chicane.
1 minute 55 with Melvin Moe's last lap time. That car needs to be in the pits. Adley Fong brings the Lamborghini into the pits as a Ferrari goes spinning in the background. Let's see how long Fong's pit stop is. Without damage, it's about 48 to 50 seconds, and then it can be longer if he chooses to repair damage. With 11 minutes remaining, having driven a car for this long, if it is damaged, I would be just getting out as soon as possible.
So in it comes, and that therefore will take Adley Fong out of the mix. We've got a change for the lead. Sean Tong is ahead of Melvin Moe now. So the gap was coming down on track, but we've had the reversal. What's happened to Melvin Moe? He's lost almost 7 seconds plus the race lead. So Tong's ahead of Moe. Padayachi is the real race leader anyway, because of course he's made his stop. He'll get that advantage back. Adley Fong has served his pit stop. There is Kang Ling going through. That's Adley Fong back on track now. Accelerates down towards turn 1. Good stop.
And Fong was only stationary for 35 seconds, so he decided not even to do tyres, and that has really suddenly put him right in the mix of things. I think he's virtually second, and a long way in second.
He will be second, but what can he do about Padayachi? No, he's going to be behind Liang, isn't he? So third he will be. So Jiatong Liang has served a stop, and he's ahead of Fong. So third it's going to put him, and he's at least 10 seconds away from Liang. So he's still got work to do to think about Padayachi, but it does bring him nearer to second place of those that have made their stops. Can he now go after Liang, even on these worn tyres?
Interesting. The only real driver that we know of to take that kind of strategy and to have the tyre for the whole race. We know Paddy actually would have changed tyres due to his length of his pit stop, and he's still leading, and he's still likelihood of winning this race with about half a minute advantage over the rest of the field. He now passes Melvin Moe. Where's Melvin gone? He's not in the pits, so that's a bit of a question mark. Melvin's just behind him now, though.
Yeah, he's third on the road, or now fourth on the road. But he lost time anyway to Tong, didn't he? And now he's lost another place to Pagliacci. So he's not served his pit stop yet, but he's just losing chunks of time. Now, you've been touching on the damage that car has got, but is it now becoming so bad? If it is becoming so bad to lose all this time, get in the pits, get the damage sorted out.
Yeah, I just don't know why you would struggle on. The car must feel so horrible, and of course, if things are bent, then it will be wearing the tyres more than it would be if the car was actually pointing the right direction. He's doing all kinds of extra damage to the car. He might be using up brakes if the brake ducting is damaged as well, overheating things. And, the pace, it was a 55 2 laps ago. The 2:03 last lap, he's already lost 2 seconds, and he's only a minute into the lap on this particular one. Melvin was leading the race at the start, and with 8 minutes to go, I think he's going to be, off the podium and maybe outside the top 5.
Yeah, it's going from bad to worse, isn't it, for him? 8 minutes and change on the clock. You've got to give you credit where it's due. Division Pagliacci is driving a really impressive race here. He's kept out of trouble, which is the main thing. That's Sean Tong, who is the on-the-road leader, number 11 then. Sean Tong for Escape Racing, the Audi R8 LMS Evo, leads the way, but going to have to be reminded at some point to serve the pit stop, because he's not for pitting, is he? 8 minutes on the clock and he still leads and he's still not pitted.
No, his pace is good, and if he chooses to do the same thing as Adderley Fong, he was about 10 seconds up the road of Fong. So I think he could easily come out of the pits, certainly in the region, if not ahead of Liang, and that would therefore be second place in the race for the final 7 minutes.
Pagliacci versus Chris van der Drift on track. It's not for position, sadly, but Division Pagliacci making a name for himself here. Absolutely exemplary drive, battling with Chris van der Drift, who again has made a really good name for himself racing in Asia, hasn't he? In Carrera Cup or in GT racing. Had that big Super League accident at Brands Hatch many years ago, Johnny Herbert-esque. But Chris van der Drift almost taking to the grass, brakes way late into the Seconda Variante, back onto the power, judging his pace against the leading Mercedes. But look at all the traffic ahead of Pagliacci now.
Danger time for Pagliacci. You'll be watching like a hawk what those guys are doing. They're all fighting over the same piece of tarmac. They're a little bit more inexperienced. They're a bit further down the grid, and they could do all kinds of things. And they're certainly not necessarily looking in their mirrors and expecting a virtual lead to come through. This hand gets out of the way. Good, well behaved there. But still 2 more to clear before he's out of danger. This is where I'd be really worried. This is my heart rate going up. Luckily, Monza's got a lot of straights to be able to ease clear, and the Porsche should be able to get out of the way. Thankfully, he caught them as they were spreading out rather than catching them as they were battling on top of each other.
So here they come then, up towards the completion of the lap. So Division Pagliacci getting through the traffic, goes over the timing line now. Look, he's cleared those lap markers, which is good news. Another lap completed by Sean Tong, who is staying out there. So he's leading on the road, maximising the opportunity to lead the race, but of course he will drop down once he makes that mandatory stop. Pagliacci gets through the danger zone with so nearly contact from Matt Solomon's Craft Bamboo Mercedes. That was very close indeed, but Pagliacci escapes. He's on the power again, 5.5 just over on the clock here. 3 minutes past 5 local time, the way the game is set at Monza. And into the pits again has gone the Aaron Lim BMW. There it is. So it's a late stop for Aaron Lim for Tedco Racing. And of course now he starts to fall down the order. He'll drop back behind Adderley Fong amongst others. So there you've got the car in the pits. Takes on that litre of fuel under the regulations. Another brief yellow flag pops out as you see on the graphic. And Kang Ling over the timing line, still taking Aaron Borg with him. 1/5 of a second between them. They're just about to gain a place against Aaron Lim. So Ling up one spot, Borg up one spot. This great battle, Ben, rages on down towards the first chicane, and Kangling just stays on the track, and Borg gets into the back of him. Oh, hip and shoulder. The Mercedes is going to get past, I think, but that was a bit overly robust, and if Borg's got any sense, he'll drop back, try to avoid a penalty and try again.
Bit of a classic Monza turn one there, because you're
Yes.
getting on the power as the other person perhaps is off the power trying to get the apex, and a classic bit of nose to tail contact, and then the secondary contact at least straighten them up, and they're still going at it through the second chicane.
It is Ling that comes off best out of all of that. Aaron Borg might be suffering from the damage after that contact that we saw at the start of this lap. 4 minutes to go. And we've now got Sean Tong into the pit. So Dervish and Padiachi will take over the lead on the road, as well as by dint of being the best of those that have made the pit stop. And it is still Jiatong Liang in second place, Adderley Fong third. And then this is the fight for fourth of the stoppers, isn't it? With now Ling ahead of Borg.
Key moment here. Where does Thong come out after his pit stop? He's been stationary already for 30 seconds. He's been in the pits for 30 seconds. So any moment now, we would expect him to exit pits as long as he's turned off damage repair. Yes, he has. He's out on the pits now. Is this going to be second position as we still focus on this battle for sixth position? Very, very entertaining side-by-side stuff.
But Kang Ling is still ahead on a stop-go penalty of 30 seconds. Look for Melvin Moe. So that's going to throw the order up into the air yet further, isn't it? So Melvin Moe dear, stop-go of 30 seconds. Over the line comes Kang Ling. Then Aaron Borg right up behind him. Down they head towards the first chicane. 3 minutes on the clock. That's going to be 2 laps.
Where is the leader? Leader's currently halfway around the lap.
Ling in all strife at the chicane. He got his braking point way late. Clatters back on the road across the front of Borg. It's getting all messy, this, between those two. It's like nobody wants to finish.
So Padiachi's got a healthy advantage, but still question marks over Liang, Thong and Fong for second, third, fourth position. Melvin Moe would have got that. Oh no! That's even more damage to the Lamborghini.
And that was not Kang Ling's fault. He just got drilled and he's in real strife. That was a back marker, just braking ludicrously late, getting into the back of him. It looked like the Honda, didn't it? That just missed its braking point completely. So Aaron Borg, who had a long pit stop early on, is in 6th place. But you get the feeling, don't you, that the race director might well be having a word with just about everybody in this entry because driving standards have been variable.
Yes, and actually Kang Ling has retired into the pits, so
Right.
too much damage to the Lamborghini, and that's a real shame. But that's a name, therefore, to watch out for as we progress through the series. Maybe not obvious from the result sheet of this first race, but very interesting to see how he can get on in our remaining races. Thong over the line then, and he is about 5 seconds behind Liang, in third, ahead of Fong.
Okay, with 1.5 minutes to go now. So where is Padiachi? Can he squeeze one more lap out of this? Sean Tong then, 6.4 seconds to make up relative to Jiatong Liang. There is the Audi. And Sean Tong specialises in these cars in the real world. Raced them in GT3, raced them in the R8 LMS Cup for the customer racers. And is he going to be able to get onto terms with Liang? He's not, is he? He's too far back with only a lap and a bit if he's lucky to go.
Yeah, I think we were going to... 1 minute to go. Padiachi's got half a minute before he gets over the line. So I think we could maybe... We're going to certainly squeeze another one out of this, aren't we? But as you say, 6 seconds back is going to be a real struggle for Thong. Mo would have got that drive-through penalty, that stop-go penalty for speeding in the pit lane. It almost instantaneously came on as he left the pits.
Okay, thanks for that. So that explains...
30 seconds remaining as Padiachi goes on to hit the last lap of the race.
That explains what's going on as far as the penalties are concerned.
And we follow Sean Thong in the Audi. There is Padiachi then
the parabolica,
into
and there
the
onto
first
his last
chicane.
lap now.
As we've said before,
is Dervish and Padiachi. So all good for the Mercedes driver, isn't it?
Strong, kept out of trouble drive. We've actually got a couple of bit more traffic to contend with on this last lap as the clock now ticks to 0. 5:10 local time, Monza. similar conditions to we saw in the sim race, with a track temperature of 25 degrees, air temperature of 20 degrees. And it has been pretty much lights to flag for Paddy. Had a couple of laps where he needed to get past the Craft Bamboo boys when they were undamaged, but Melvin Moe has fallen foul of a lot of damage throughout the race. And Jiang Tong Lang holds on to second position, where he was for the majority of the second half of the race, and has actually stretched a little advantage over Thong as well.
Well, Paddy, say lights to flag, lights flashing as well as he comes up to the back markers. He wants to get through them as rapidly as possible, doesn't he, as they drop down towards the Variante Ascari. It's Evan Chen ahead of him in the 991 iteration of the 911 Porsche. But really, Paddy can just sit there now. He doesn't need to get past. He can let them have their own battle and just bring this round to the checkered flag. It's been a great drive by Division Paddy, and has annihilated the opposition, which is in danger of annihilating itself. Evan Chen up on the inside there, gets the Porsche ahead of the Lamborghini, goes out wide, and Paddy just let this battle go. Don't get involved. Checker flag at the ready, and the first of the GT World Challenge Asia Esports, presented by Tarmac Works races for the real drivers, is won by Division Paddy, and a very impressive drive indeed. Division Paddy wins here at Monza from, it should be, Jiatong Liang in second and Sean Tong third. The gap coming down between them, their confirmation of the way they should come across the line. But a really impressive drive by Division Paddy to pretty much dominate our first real-world drivers' race, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of people making errors, plenty of people still learning how this platform reacts, and some very choice early on incidents. But great to see, as the race even progressed, the drivers settling into a rhythm a bit more, and we'll see more and more of that as we progress through the season. And maybe the gaps will close down to Paddy at the head of the field, who wins by half a minute.
Yeah, if you take everybody's dramas out of the equation, Liang and Fong and Borg and certainly Kang Ling, there could have been a lot more people up there arguing over the race lead. So, yeah, fascinating race, and I think more to come from these drivers, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been really, really entertaining. I'm sure Paul's been loving just sitting there and watching it, Paul.
Hey guys, thank you very much, David and Ben. What a brilliant race. Very dramatic. An opening lap incident, plenty of contact and racing and fighting from our professional drivers. Thoroughly enjoyed the first race of the Pro-Am professional drivers, real drivers, in the GT World Challenge Asia Esports Series, presented by Tarmac Works. Thank you very much to David and Ben. Thank you very much to our drivers that took part in this first round. And before we go any further, I just want to remind you that the next race from the wonderful Laguna Seca in California will take place on the 27th of October. So if you've enjoyed this and you're looking forward to more, please don't forget to tune in for our second race of the season for both the eSport drivers and the professional drivers as well. You'll be able to find out more about that championship. Dates and times will be on the GT World Challenge website and social channels, so do get involved in that conversation and come and join us for a future race. But that is the future, and now we've got the present. We've had the eSport drivers racing. We've just seen a dramatic, shall we say, professional real-world drivers racing, and we're going to have a few words from our two category winners in a very short while. So we will be speaking to the pro winner, which is Diriam Paradashe, should I say, and also our race one winner, our event number one for the eSport drivers, which is Kevin Peterson, in just a few moments' time. If you've enjoyed this race, let us know in the comments at YouTube. That would be great, and give us a like and a subscribe as well. And David and Ben, if I've still got you on the line, any standout performances there, do you think, from the first pro drivers race?
From the pros, Division Paddy for me, somebody that, yes, okay, we know that he's got experience in the real world, but he's never, with due respect to him, been a standout driver. But in that race, he did everything right. So many people on that first lap drove into each other and created mayhem, and he just kept out of trouble. And if you wind your clock back, 2 hours or so now, Paul, you and I were talking about the fact that first corner is a pinch point, and of all the people to prove it, it was the real world drivers, many of whom have raced there and should know better. Kept out of trouble, didn't put a wheel wrong, he wasn't locking up, he wasn't bouncing over the curb. He did, in that real world race, an exemplary job. So definitely keep an eye on him for the future. And Kang Ling had good pace, but seemed to be a magnet for the trouble. So if he can get rid of the magnet, get rid of the trouble, I think he'll be another man to watch going into that next race in 2 weeks' time.
Fantastic. Thank you, David. And Ben, yourself and I have seen and been part of a lot of sim racing and esport racing recently. The differences between driving a real car and a virtual car are stark in terms of your awareness of what you can see around you. And I think that showed with the professional drivers today, didn't it?
Yes, for the most part of them, there was definitely some struggles, and as we've already said, you rip up the rule book and the form book when you have the expected drivers like Chris van der Drift and Daryl O'Young that are world famous the world over, and yet don't feature at the top of the leaderboard for our sim racing. But it will change, it will develop, depending on how much time people have, how much time they are able to put into the platform. Everybody's going to gain more and more experience. And to be honest, Paddy Atchie's pace was not that far off what we saw from our sim race moments before.
Yep, that's very true. Great performances throughout the field. And as you just mentioned there, Ben, and as I believe you mentioned in the live comms as well, with these things, when you get real-world drivers joining an esports series like this, their experience levels are very varied. And over the course of the season, this is a 5-race championship. As I say, Laguna Seca is round 2 coming up on the 27th of this month. Their experience, their confidence and their time behind the virtual wheel will increase. And progressively, we've seen it in the past. We saw it in the GT World Challenge main series. The performances become stronger, the driving standards become higher, and the racing becomes much, much more intense, which is something I'm sure everybody at home will join me in being looking forward to seeing how this progresses with our real world drivers going forward in future rounds. So the points have now been tallied up. The drivers have scored for the first race of the championship. It is a 5-racer. The charity event that we had last month at Suzuka was a one-off race, doesn't count towards the championship running order. So again, check the SRO GT World Challenge websites. But before we do that, let's have a word with the winner of our very first Asia Series Esport Championship in the AM category, in the Sim Racers category. I believe we've got on the line Kevin Peterson. Hello there.
Hi.
Very well, thanks. How are you? Congratulations on winning the first round.
Yeah, thank you. Very exciting.
So, from a racing point of view, you had quite an intense fight on there. Did the performance come to the car as you expected it during testing?
Yeah, it did. I didn't. I guess overall, I didn't do myself any favors in qualifying, probably. And on the first couple of laps of the race, the car was a little bit sluggish, which I did expect. It does come to the car later. The setup comes to the car a bit later in the race, and I think there are a couple of strategic factors there too. I started the race quite heavy and managed to do a lot of fuel conserving and a short pit stop too, which I think helped along the way. Obviously, I had some good fortune too with some incidents for other drivers, which unfortunate for them.
Fantastic to hear. I'm actually hearing you 3 times in my ear, so forgive me if I look confused while you're talking. It's quite hard to keep up with the same thing 3 times. But in terms of your rivals, have you been impressed with the speed and consistency of the other drivers? It's going to be a difficult season, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. Even just qualifying for this round through the hot lap competition was very challenging, and many of us spent a lot of time working on that to get through. So it's been the competition's very tight, and that carried over into the race, of course. And I certainly, there wasn't a definite winner until the very end. So it was a very exciting race overall.
Fantastic. And going forward, we've still got 4 rounds left in this championship. Laguna Seca being the next one. Very different tracks. very different characteristics, how they'll play for the car as well. Give people at home some kind of idea of how much time you put in behind the wheel. What sort of practice do you do to be at the sharp end in a series like this?
Yeah, certainly so. In the case for this round, it began with the qualifying setup, obviously, to get through the hot lap competition. Generally speaking, I'd try to flip that around and do it the reverse order and work on a race setup, get a car set up for the race, and then sharpen it up a bit for qualifying, because you can win a race, obviously, you know, at the end of the race, but you can't win a race in qualifying. So.
Very wise words. And finally, one real quick one. Next up at Laguna, how do you think you're going to get on there?
Yeah, I enjoy the track. It's a very different circuit, as you mentioned. There's a lot of places that can catch you out. Very easy to make mistakes and lose time. So, yeah, looking forward to that.
Brilliant, Kevin. Really appreciate your time. Congratulations again. A fantastic opening result. And now we're going to hear from the winner of the race that you've just seen, our real world professional driver, our Pro-Am race winner from round one. Hello. Oh, I'm very well, thanks. How are you? Congratulations.
Thank you.
You had a very intense race in this opening round. How did it go from your perspective? How did the race pan out from your point of view? Very dramatic from us watching on TV.
Yeah, it was. Once we got through the first corner, relatively cleanly, I just sort of focused on just not making mistakes the whole race. Very similar to like a real world event as well. Like you just got to do consistent laps, stay out of trouble, be really good with your passing as well. I've done a lot of GT stuff before and long distance racing. Just brought that sort of experience into this esports world as well. It was a bit chaotic. I know there was a lot going on behind us, but I just focused on my own race and just made sure I didn't do anything wrong and made sure the pit stop was on point as well.
Now, you say that you've done, obviously, a lot of real-world GT racing and a lot of sim racing. Has there been opportunity for you to take your real-world experience and apply it into the sim that helped you get the race win today?
Yeah, there's certain things that apply. Not everything, of course. Obviously, there's a big difference between the sim and real life in terms of the car feeling, but just more the mentality. When you go into a race like this, like I've done races sort of like Bathurst 12-hour and big GT endurance races here in Australia, and you sort of treat it the same. You know, you've got slower cars, faster cars, and every time you make a pass, it has to be full commitment, no sort of half moves or anything. And there's be clean coming through traffic, and the same thing as well, like not making any mistakes the whole time, brake markers on point, coming to the pits, leaving the pits, all these little things that we do in real life carries over to this as well.
Now, we saw that a lot of your colleagues on the track from the real world had a bit of a difficult time adapting. So just really quickly, what sort of practice and preparation have you put in to get to the point where you were so competitive here at Monza?
Didn't do a huge amount of laps, really. Every time we did, it's more like a quality over quantity thing when it comes to the sim racing thing. Like I struggled to stay on the sim for very long. But when I do, I just try to do consistent laps, and I was just with some of my mates. We just chip away at setup, and we'll jump on maybe for an hour or so on a weekend and just try to do an hour of perfect laps and just muck around there. And that's all we really do. I try not to do too much because there is a bit of a difference between this and the real life. So I don't really want my real life driving to get too compounded. But I just try to do quality laps every time I'm on the sim and treat it like real life. So if I crash, I turn the sim off, and I do that pretty much every time I jump on.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. That's Davisham Pariashe, the Race 1 winner of the Real World Pro-Am Championship. Thank you once again and congratulations for a great result in this opening round. And everybody at home, I really hope that you have enjoyed this presentation of the first race of the GT World Challenge Asia Esports Series by Tarmac Works. It's been an absolute honour to be involved in what is a groundbreaking and historic first eSport championship. So congratulations to everybody behind the scenes. Congratulations to all the drivers. Thank you to everybody who's been watching us at home, wherever you are in the world. And last but certainly no means least, Ben Constanduris and David Addison. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking us through two very action-packed and exciting races. Oh, I think we've lost David and Ben, actually.